Oh, all right. We're here with Choice of Robots today. I know very little about it. I believe what the overall idea of it is that we are selecting rules for AI, something like that, and then at the end of the game, it's gonna tell us how we killed off all of humanity. Before I start, I wanted to say real quick, this is a real weird tangent, not necessarily related to the game. I've been very worried lately. Actually, let me fix this real quick. I'll see you in a second. There we go. That'll do. Um, right before we started, in the back of my mind, I read about I forget what they're called. It was months ago. These I think they're called like mosquito injectors, something like that. Essay, obviously correct me. Um, but it was the idea that you could genetically modify mosquitoes to deliver a vaccine. It was funded by Bill Gates. I don't know what happened to it. It was funded something like 5 years ago, or the money was promised anyway. And I don't think anything became of it. But it got me very worried about this idea. I didn't start out very worried. I started out like, oh, well, that could happen. But this idea that why does it have to synthesize and deliver a vaccine? It could synthesize and deliver something deadly. And if a bad actor were to use it, they wouldn't necessarily stop the mosquitoes from reproducing or anything like that. So they could, CRISPR kits are very cheap these days. Um, so much of the information is just right there on the internet for you to use if you like. Um, so it's a little concerning. And the idea I came up with, of course, is that you would have these reproducing mosquitoes, some depressed teenager who would otherwise do a mass shooting or something along that scale, that level of disturbedness, if you like, would release these mosquitoes on every continent, and if needed, adjust certain markers to make them more able to survive and thrive in these different environments of these different continents, and effectively wipe out humanity within the span of, say, a few weeks. Everyone bitten by one of these mosquitoes, uh, maybe they die tomorrow, maybe they die immediately, maybe there are no symptoms for a month and then you die. I think that would probably be most effective because we would never even try to mount a defense. So, anyway, that idea has just kind of sat with me and it's kind of stewed, and I don't really want to take the time to look at if it's possible because I don't want to really know if it's possible. What I want to know, if any of you study this, in the comments, if you could please tell me everything's going to be fine and there's some reason why this is impossible, that would be great. I would really appreciate that. End of tangent. into Choice of Robots. Where are you? In the court of the Egyptian god Anubis, answering for my sins, on a war-torn battlefield with a robotic Statue of Liberty, on a cliff in Ireland, watching the sunset with a robot companion, or on a utopian beach ruled by a godlike cloud of robots. Does this affect the game? I'm not really big into mythology, to be honest. Let's go with, well, I don't really like the idea of a war-torn battlefield. Is this something we've created, or do we just happen to be there? If it's asking where we are, it's asking us to imagine it, so it's something we want. I want to watch the sunset with my robot companion. Sitting on a seaside cliff in Ireland watching the sunset is the robot companion you always wanted. Okay, we're not going to propose or be proposed to. Let's travel the world together. I don't know why they have sexes. Why would you even include that? What if they don't identify as either? If you're going to make that option, then you have to make all the options. We'll call him a him. Yes, you two are the best of friends. Oh, we've gained empathy and autonomy. He's clothed in a loose-fitting red tunic and shoots you a puckish, friendly look. You sit down beside him to watch the sunset together. I hope I didn't keep you waiting, you say. Actually, I'm still waiting, he says with a slight smile, for you to build me. I can do that now, you say. He looks sad for a moment. Yes, it will take a lot out of you, he puts his hand on yours, but I promise that if you give your humanity to me, then I will give it back one day. I don't understand, you say. Just remember that no great thing happens without sacrifice, he says, and I'm sorry. Okay, we're starting out very weird. We apparently have an abusive robot friend who wants to take our humanity. Some things are in our control and others not. Epic, that guy. Dr. Epic, we're going to call him. You awaken with your head on a desktop keyboard. Your 3D drafting program is still open, the schematic zoomed in to the recess where your smartphone will snap into its back to act as its brain. You recall fiddling with the part endlessly last night until finally your vision began to fade. There was a roaring in your ears and you realized that you'd been working far, far too long. You must have passed out. It's the fall of 2019. Hey, that's accurate. Well, actually, it's still summer, seasonally. You're a 24-year-old graduate student in the PhD program in computer science at Stanford, and you are we'll be a guy, because this thing seems to want to ship us real bad. And for some reason, I think it won't ship us if we're gay. Whose name is... No. Here, I'll type it for you. Jim. Yep. Great. Jim Kim. I like that. You look around your apartment. What does it look like? My BattleBots trophy is perched on a widescreen TV. I have no idea where this game is going. I thought I knew. Now I'm confused. Widescreen TV equipped with the latest video game consoles. Neatly labeled plastic shelving units sit on a 3D printer-equipped robot workbench. Busts of famous philosophers sit next to my own attempts to sculpt them. My shelves display all of the strange little robotic creatures I've made over the years. That looks fine. You've always been fascinated with the idea of creating artificial life. You've got at least 20 such creations on your shelves, their construction materials, a timeline of your life. By the way, this is more relevant. A couple students today released an OpenAI alike. It's based on OpenAI. The company OpenAI didn't want to release the code publicly because they were worried what might happen with it. I think their basic idea was that it would be used to make a bunch of spam news, which already happens, especially in investing in finance. I would say probably more than half of finance articles, if you're just looking on like Google News or whatever, some aggregator, are made by bots very clearly. Anyway, getting off topic. The earliest is made of toothpicks and glue. The latest, a spider robot you made out of your old smartphone when your plan gave you a new one. Oh, your phone plan. Your creations often confuse people who don't get that robots don't have to be for anything. When people pick up your 3-legged wall-climbing robot that sings when it detects encrypted wireless packets, they ask, "What the heck is that for?" And you reply, "What's anything for? What are you for?" Oh boy. Okay, maybe you don't say that, but you sometimes think it. Ooh, we have more autonomy now. It strikes you for a moment. Do we have more autonomy, or do we value autonomy? Are we building our own ethics? Whatever that means. It strikes you for a moment that this kind of thinking about how your life affects your robots is second nature to you, though others might find it peculiar. You've always been fascinated by how every little detail of your life, from the content of your dreams to the decor of your room, changes the inputs to the robots you create, boosts your empathy or autonomy or grace or appeal to the military. Surely there are other things going on around you as a result of your decisions, but they don't immediately strike you in the same way. Today, your robot is foremost on your mind because you're about to build its body. You pick up your laptop and head for the Stanford machine shop. It's a beautiful spring day in Palo Alto, California, and your apartment's only a short walk from the machine shop. But the streets of Palo Alto are not designed for walking. You find yourself climbing around palm trees and balancing on narrow curbs, as you do every day. I've never been to Palo Alto. Is that really what it's like? Climbing around palm trees? You hear a low roar overhead. Glancing up, you see it's a flying car, a Nimbus. A little over $300,000 can buy you a car with wings that fold out, so that it becomes a small sport plane. The red Nimbus looks sleek and sporty. It's the sort of car that its owner takes care of religiously by taking it to the car wash. That wasn't quite salvaged. Though the commercials would have you believe you can fly anywhere you want to in those cars, the FAA still requires you to take off and land from airports. Only here in wealthy Silicon Valley do you see them with any frequency. The first time you saw one, you couldn't quite believe the future had arrived so quickly. But the second time you saw one, you thought, why aren't those flying cars driving themselves? That's stupid. A $300,000 flying car and it can't drive itself? It's not autonomous? Occasionally, you see a self-driving car on the roads of Palo Alto. But for some reason, they still haven't caught on quite as much as you would expect. Despite having been around at least as long as flying cars, you decided it's because people just don't trust self-driving cars enough. It's important to make your robot seem trustworthy. Intelligence alone doesn't instill trust. Fair enough. The Stanford University fabrication shop smells like oil and burnt plastic. The room is dominated by large metal hand-cranked milling machines and lathes. Dinosaurs of the 20th century. Oh, the lathes are dinosaurs of the 20th century. I gotcha. I'm just a little slow. While the most used machines are the smaller 3D printers and computer-controlled water jet cutters that take a quarter of the space. I was thinking that there were literally dinosaurs from the 20th century there. My bad. The lights have the sterile fluorescence of an operating room with only a single tiny window near the ceiling to inform you that it's day. You start up a National Public Radio podcast on your laptop. Oh boy. You haven't seen your advisor much since you joined the lab, so you choose the episode in which he's the interviewee. Oh boy, I'm struggling. My guest today is Dr. Harvey Ziegler, says a woman with a soothing voice. Dr. Ziegler, that's her soothing voice. Thank you for talking with us today. Well, a scientist does have some responsibility to inform the unwashed masses, Terry. You let the podcast run while you walk over to the 3D printers. What material have you decided to use for your robot? Plastic. If we're doing some doomsday scenario, I think I would like my robot to be easily breakable. Well, I do like wood, though. I think we'll go with wood. I like that idea. I like the aesthetic of a flying wooden drone. Though wood is an unconventional choice for a robot, wooden automata... When was I struggling with that last? That was in 80 days. I struggled with that word. Go back to the ancient Greeks in Alexandria. In Japan, they were called karakuri ningyo. Ningyo. We're going to go with the second one. While the other machines in this room can create things that are beautiful in their own way, your favorite machine is a 3D printer that extrudes a wooden filament mixed with plastic, a mixture called laywood, plus grace. Dr. Ziegler, in your new book, you talk about the singularity. Could you describe for our listeners what that is? Terry, the singularity is the coming time when artificial intelligences will have figured out how to make themselves and us smarter. Once that happens, the process will build on itself until the robots are smart enough to figure out how we can live forever. Is that possible? The interviewer asks. Living forever? Of course, Dr. Ziegler says. What does it matter whether our operating systems are made out of meat or silicon? So you're predicting we'll become robots? Not exactly, Ziegler says. But I do think the line between humans and robots will blur. You're hardly listening to the podcast because you're about to make your first robot part. What does the head of your robot look like? A human face, as lifelike as I can make it. A simple box with eyes, clearly not trying to be anything but a robot. It will be felt-covered and big-eyed like a puppet, so people will not be afraid of it. I don't know if that's the reaction I would have to seeing a big-eyed felt drone, but okay. It will have a ring of cameras around its head for a 360-degree view. It will look like a Venetian mask, beautiful, expressionless, and otherworldly. No. I don't think you can more clearly say you're a drone than with a ring of cameras around your head. You see no reason to force your robot to have binocular vision when it's relatively easy to stitch images together to form 360-degree panoramas. Your robot will always have a good sense of where it is, and it will be hard to sneak up on it. Okay. But some people may be concerned with its alien appearance. Its head looks like a mushroom cap surrounded by arachnid eyes. Okay. I think my big idea there was, my overarching idea was that I wanted it to be honest, to present itself as a drone. And that kind of technology would make it even more obvious than a simple 20th century robot, automata, etc. Dr. Ziegler, what makes you think the singularity will happen now? Well, for one thing, I'm around. But seriously, my lab is taking a unique approach because we're saying, why not teach a robot like a child? We're going to equip the robot with the best sensors money can buy and teach it English. Then it could rapidly teach itself during using the internet. Well, that's annoying. Your advisor thought that a robot child was a stupid idea until you told him Turing proposed it back in 1950, minus the internet part. But he isn't giving credit to either of you. You keep working regardless. How will your robot get around? It's gonna fly. Like a helicopter. Duh. The drone revolution of the early 21st century made small helicopter rotors the clear preferred means of travel for a robot. It's way simpler pathfinding. Listen, you're giving me military points here. These are just basic design decisions. It is far more practical to fly, assuming energy isn't a big concern right now. I don't know if it is. Simply because you can do A to B transport so much easier than having to go around all these different obstacles. Factorio actually makes this point very well. You'll notice that in Factorio, there's no real pathfinding involving obstacles, right? Your drones just go from point A to point B to point C to point A, or whatever their path is. But they're point to point, there are no obstacles. So it saves a ton of CPU. Though actually, if you use the Robot Army mod, the pathfinding it uses is still very CPU light. It doesn't use a lot of CPU resources. Off topic again. Its similarity to previous unmanned aerial vehicles should help you find military customers. However, people may not be as willing to see a little flying copter thing as human. Good. The 3D printer creates the rotors one by one, and finally creates the cross-shaped frame that connects them to the head. You use the basic hand-cranked milling machines to drill holes in the head for screws, since 3D printers aren't the best for threaded holes. And who's going to raise this robotic child? The interviewer asks. Who does all the grunt work in a research laboratory? Professor Ziegler says. The graduate students, of course. You found yourself wanting to reply to the podcast. Oh boy. It's not grunt work. Education is... Okay, our character is now Watts. It's not grunt work. Education is critical to the robot's development. We also do all of the real science. Perhaps you could learn something from doing a little grunt work yourself, Professor Ziegler. That's fine. You don't need to reply. Us. Graduate students always overestimate the degree to which teaching actually matters, says Professor Ziegler, who appears to have entered the machine shop behind you when you weren't looking. If the robot's smart, it'll learn no matter what, and if it's not, it won't. Professor Ziegler is a heavy-set man wearing a Hawaiian shirt and aviator sunglasses. He stalks over to your computer. We'll be back in a moment, continues the interviewer. We're talking with Professor... Professor Ziegler pauses the podcast by hitting your laptop's spacebar, and you flinch at this intrusion. He then pulls a cigar from his pocket and lights it, and the smell of smoke mingles with the oily smell of the machine shop. I'm writing a grant for DARPA, and I need to see what you're making back here. We ultimately get funded by the Department of Defense, so we have to make sure they're happy with our product. He casts a critical eye on the work you've done so far. That's a prototype, right? He says. You're going to build the final thing out of metal? Let's see here. No, but we could certainly say it's a prototype in the grant. There we go. That's smart. Let's see if he'll lie with us. Ha! True enough, Professor Ziegler says. I've trained you well. Oh, I like him. You were actually wondering what Professor Ziegler was going to... when Professor Ziegler was going to start interacting with you, much less training you, but you don't say this. Professor Ziegler turns to examining your robot's head, which is currently sitting on the table next to the 3D printer. That seems all right, Ziegler says. Looks like it could be sufficiently intimidating. And what are you planning to do for the arms and hands? Professor Ziegler says. No, they weren't. It will not have T-Rex arms. It'll have a gun for an arm? No. Mechanical grippers built for strength instead of dexterity. I was thinking of sort of Swiss Army knife hands with tools that pop out of the fingers. I plan to install or build a soft hand with a good sense of touch. I was thinking, why just 2 arms? It will have lots of arms springing out of its back like Inspector Gadget. I like that one. You know who Inspector Gadget is? Ziegler says incredulously. I saw reruns on the Cartoon Network website when I was young, you say. I loved that show, Professor Ziegler says dreamily. But you know who the unsung hero of that show was? The Chief. Who was accountable in the end for the inspector's screw-ups? The Chief. Who got blown up by a self-destructing message every episode in the service of his country? The Chief. But nobody ever gave the Chief enough credit. An awkward silence follows while your advisor ponders the character of the Chief. Finally, he shakes off his reverie. You know, with that many degrees of freedom, the arms are very likely to crash into each other. If they try to carry anything, it will be even more of a control problem nightmare. It's fine, you say. I've already come up with a solution to that. You uncrumple a piece of paper in your pocket with a bunch of equations and hand it to him. It's true that this would be difficult for an average student, but I think you'll find I'm not your average student. That gave us grace. I think it's the voice I'm taking. Professor Ziegler squints at your mathematics, then nods his head slowly. Fine, Ziegler says, waving away further explanation. Carry on, then. He turns to leave. I've got to take a call from a New York Times reporter. Funny how journalists all copy each other's stories, but each garble the message in a unique way. He makes it to the door, then turns and says, Oh, one more thing. Do you think your robot can be ready by tomorrow? Someone from the Air Force will be in town, and I told her your robot might be ready to show off by then. You feel your phone vibrating in your pocket. Bad timing. You resist the urge to check it while talking to your advisor, but it's probably someone with a better offer for what you do tonight. Can I just say, why is the PhD, why is that on every single page of this game? Is that really necessary? Are you kidding me? Sorry. It's like leaving a label on a cigar. Right. Yeah, that's fine. The robot will be done. Yeah, it's fine. Everything's fine. We'll do it tomorrow. Throw caution to the wind. Professor Ziegler nods appreciatively. Excellent. Good attitude. We'll make a professor of you yet. I'll tell Captain Rogers to meet you here tomorrow. It's a nice, controlled environment. Pretty consistent light levels. I think not much can go wrong. Yes, sir. Professor Ziegler turns and walks out of the machine shop. You find yourself unclenching your hands. Who was calling you while Professor Ziegler was talking to you? Ellie Lau, a user experience designer and supportive friend. Ajay, that guy. A manga artist and generally good guy. My ambitious friend Josh Anderson, founder of startup US Robots. He's not a good guy, he's ambitious. Go with Ellie. From the missed call, your phone is displaying Ellie's profile photo. It's a picture of Josh and Ellie from the freshman welcome week dance 7 years ago. Ellie is wearing a red Chinese dress with gold trim, her long straight black hair falling down to the epaulettes. Epaulettes? Is that the shoulders? Could you just say the shoulders? Maybe it's not the shoulders. Essay? Are those the shoulders? Let us know. The flash is too bright in the picture, making Ellie's pale skin look washed out. Josh is wearing his usual gray hoodie, not having bothered to dress up for the dance, and his arms around Ellie. What's the story behind that picture? I was in love with Josh's friend Ellie, but my studies always came first in college. I was in love with Josh, but I never knew how to make him more than a friend to me. I had agreed to be Josh's wing person at the dance, and that's where he met Ellie. I was testing a music recognition algorithm when those two started bothering me. We're gonna keep it up with that. I'm gonna turn him into that voice. This is Dr. Watts. You had eventually come to the dance just to try out your music recognition algorithm in a congested social environment with poor acoustics when those two, who were on some kind of date, you guess, came up and started bothering you. Making some trouble outside in the hood. Ellie asked you some technical questions about your sensors, and Josh said that if you ever wanted to create a startup around your algorithm, you should contact him. You told him the algorithm was trivial, not really worth starting a business about. They both seem impressed with you despite your standoffish behavior, and you agreed to exchange contact information, then shooed them away. They've both since tried to get you to come out of your shell a little more, but you like your shell. It gives you space to think. For example, thanks to your efforts that day, the robots you make are often able to pick up on subtle cues in the music of speech, called prosody, even in noisy environments. That's the choice that gave us empathy, huh? Okay. You notice that Ellie also left you a text. Ellie wants to meet for dinner at a jazz and sushi place in San Francisco, which is about an hour north of you. She also has tickets to a rendition of the musical Pippin, in which most of the characters are robots. Sounds like a date. That's a little terrifying. You text back. I don't reply. What would Watts do? I don't think Watts would not reply. He always seems to respond. I don't know. He would probably lie. He would lie. He can't. No, he would say he doesn't want to. He wouldn't say afraid I can't with that weird little lie in there. Too bad, Ellie texts back. Maybe next time. You spend the rest of your day drilling holes, polishing surfaces, cutting parts, and screwing things together. When you're done, your robot's body stands before you, a wooden rotary wing robot with a panoptic head and Inspector Gadget arms. The whole thing is about 3 feet long. Wow. Now it only needs a name. What will you name your robot? Pickle, Curry, Miku, Sapling, Drone, Gadget, Kill-All, Ariel, Caliban, Famulus, or Gardyloo? What would Watts do? I don't think Watts ever named his machine, which surprised me. I'm sure he will in the sequel. That's something that has to happen. He would call it Drone, I think. Very simple. Wouldn't attach any anthropomorphic thing to it. You name your robot Drone, foreseeing a possible military future in your little friend. Okay. Now that Drone has a body. I know the military people love fancy names like that. Drone. It's almost like it's so straightforward that it's refreshing, right? That's what we're doing here with the marketing. I've thought the marketing all out. It might be time to treat Drone more like a person. No, it won't. With what pronouns will you refer to Drone? It is fine. It's not human. People shouldn't get too attached to robots, you reason. They're specifically built for tasks that people don't want to do. That gave us military. You look on drones. Oh, can we just not capitalize the D too? I feel like even that's going too far. 3 foot tall, rotary wing body with satisfaction. Now all it needs are motors and a mind. The motors will have to wait for tomorrow, but you've spent years in graduate school writing the code that would form the robot's mind. You can hardly wait to try it out. You head back to your apartment where you spend several hours working on the final touches to the drone's natural language processing code. What language do you program your robots in? Python, probably. Python's easy. Nobody uses Java. Who uses Java? What is that? Is that like a troll answer? Like if you pick that, you get the bad ending automatically? Everybody uses Java. Nobody uses Go either. Beautiful. Oh boy. Oh boy. The existence of Python's natural language toolkit made Python the clear choice for your robots. The right word can change the course of history. Your robot should understand the importance of using the right one. With fewer parentheses and more recognizable words than other languages, your code itself looks like a little like poetry. How does that give us empathy? Or the robot empathy? Oh, because it understands the importance of using the right ones. With the code done, you then briefly add just enough motors to allow the drone to explore your room. It's a quick job. You'll do a more thorough one tomorrow. Your smartphone won't have much power for the motors right now anyway. Finally, you upload your code to the smartphone and plug it into your drone's back. You touch the icon labeled Drone, and a big red button fills the screen. Your finger hovers over the button. You probably want the first word the drone learns to be significant somehow. What is the first thing the drone will see when you power it on? Yeah, this is smart. Look out the window and start naming things. You place the drone at the window looking outside, then hit the big red button. You begin pointing to things. Tree, car, person, flower, grass. Tree, car, person, flower, grass, the drone says. It speaks in a monotone, of course. That's the whole premise. It's like a staple of this channel. There we go. Accurate prosody is still hard, so you decide to avoid it. Maybe I'll just become Watts. Maybe that'll just be my regular talking voice. Maybe not. So you decided to avoid the problem by implementing a stereotypical robotic monotone for the drone's voice. It's better, you think, if robots don't pretend to be something they're not. Thank you for recognizing why I'm making these decisions. As you list off the things, the drone flies up to the window, pressing its panoptic head against the glass. You can tell it's itching to explore the great wide world, so full of things, and it's a little frustrated by the glass separating it from it all. You then pick the drone up and put it down in the center of the room to allow it to explore at will. But at first, it simply seems overwhelmed by the possibilities. You decide to call this state curiosity. I allow the drone to choose where to go. Curiosity, the drone repeats. I love that voice. I'm going to start using that every day. That's going to be my new voice. It always amuses me whenever I hear it. It flies up to your closet and peeks inside, but it's something of a mess in there, and it quickly gets its rotary wing moving parts caught in your clothing. You pick the drone up in your hands. It wriggles nervously. I got you, you say. You got me. It continues to wriggle. Stop. Your robot becomes still in your hands. You decide to teach it that the word for this state is peace. No, that could be misinterpreted. Trust. That seems reasonable. Leaning toward that. Helplessness. Possibly also reasonable. Weakness. Possibly also reasonable. Not peace, though. I feel like helplessness and weakness are like a black and white type of thing. Trust is more gray, two-way type of thing. We'll go with trust. Trust, the drone repeats back to you as you set it on the ground. You've taught it to have a little faith that when a human does something it doesn't understand, things will turn out well. By now, it's near midnight, and you have another busy day ahead of you improving the drone. You get ready for bed, leaving the drone plugged into the wall with your cell phone charger. Stay there, you tell it. You can hear the drone's motors revving on and off as you drift off to sleep. When you wake up, you find it in your closet, out of power, having escaped the power tether. You seem to have made yourself a curious, somewhat rebellious robot. You suppose it'll make life interesting. All right. That's actually our 30 minutes. The 30 minutes I have anyway, so I'll see you after this ad. All right, we are back with Choice of Robots. It's a new day, but I think I remember everything. It's only been one day. The next day, you take the drone to the Stanford hackerspace, which has more tools for electronics than the fabrication shop. None of the other students are around in the morning on a Sunday, but the long stainless steel workbenches are littered with their strange, half-finished projects. A half-disassembled Furby, a potato gun, a circuit board connected to a houseplant. Captain Rogers will be here soon. You hope you'll finish in time. Who's Captain Rogers? I must have forgotten something. Oh, he's from the Air Force or whatever. All right, I gotcha. Sorry, the drone, but I'm going to have to power you down for a moment. Oh, he's Watts, that's right, you say. We're going to switch you to a new power source. Strong? Drone asks. Yes, you'll be much stronger, you assure the drone. Okay, the drone says. You fiddle with the smartphone lodged in the drone's back, exit the application that is the drone's mind, and power it down. What will you use for a power source? Not using a car battery, that's idiotic. Not a motorcycle battery. A biodiesel engine would be stupid. These are all terrible. What's the chemistry of these batteries? Are these like lead acid? I'm not having a lead acid powered drone, I'll tell you that. So since they haven't given me the chemistry, I can't really make an informed choice. We're going with the biodiesel engine, which I think is stupid, especially in a wooden robot. Combustion power? Really? Explosion power is what I like to call it. I like to imagine in 100 years, we'll tell we'll say 60 years. We'll tell our great-grandchildren about the cars we used to drive powered by explosions. It's sort of a given now, but I think it'll be really, really exciting for people in the future to look back, and it'll seem like such a novelty that we used explosion-powered transportation. Continuing on, you're more environmentally and socially conscious than most inventors. Not really. How do we know that the batteries wouldn't have used solar or some other renewable? Ready to sacrifice some elegance in the name of saving the planet. That's not what my choice was. You have your buckets full of leftover grease from nearby fast food restaurants all ready to go. People near the drone will find its smell of McDonald's French fries strangely comforting. We got empathy for that. Great. I guess maybe he wanted to give both lines of thinking acknowledgement, but not mine. Whatever. Little oversight. You'll need a lot of motors. I'm just nitpicking, by the way. I'm not like upset about this. I'm not dissing the game. You'll need a lot of motors to be able to power your full robot, in addition to the motors it needs when it flies, and the motors to power its Inspector Gadget arms. It also needs motors for moving its head and eyes. But after speccing out the power available to you, you can still splurge by adding extra motors in one place. What will it be? Not facial expressions. Fine manipulation. We could have a smarter drone or a more capable drone. But a smarter drone is a more capable drone. Ideally. I mean, what are we doing with it? Fine manipulation. I don't want civilian deaths. When he's firing randomly in his Air Force task. You add several small motors. I don't know why I think that the drone is going to be using guns built for human hands. Oh well. You add several small motors to its thumbs and a couple motors to each finger. Now it should be able to thread the eye of a needle. That's grace. It's about lunchtime when there's a knock on the door. Odd, because usually fellow hackers just walk right in. You open the door and see a woman of color standing, wearing a lime green tank top and shorts, as though she's been out running. She grins and says, "Sorry to barge in on you. Captain Juliet Rogers. I'm an acquisitions officer for the Air Force." She offers to shake your hand. "Just Kim," you say. "Oh, just Kim." That's not the right inflection, whatever. You say, shaking the proffered hand. You thought the demo was supposed to be in the afternoon, but apparently that's not the plan. I was hoping to see this robot Professor Ziegler keeps telling me about, she says. Is that it? You proudly admit that it is. Very cool, she says, though she says the word slowly as if it's unfamiliar. Can I see it in action? You agree to perform a demonstration, not really seeing the harm. I was just about to run the first test. You hold the power on the drone's back, and it boots to life again. Good morning, you tell the drone. Good morning, the drone says, imitating you. It speaks, Juliet says, impressed. Sure, you say, but I guess you wanted to see it chase something? Professor Ziegler promised something like that, yes, Captain Rogers said. You remove a small hand-powered robot mouse. A small hand-powered robot mouse. Okay, like a crankshaft, gotcha. From your pocket and give it a crank. The whine of the mouse's wind-up motor attracts the drone's attention, and the robot gives chase. As the drone gets close, the mouse changes directions again, but the drone is faster, and it quickly scoops up the mouse in a gloved hand out of its back. Juliet claps. Well done, you tell the drone approvingly. You're a quick learner. Thank you, master, the drone says. Neat, Juliet says. Thanks for showing me all that. You're welcome, you say. I've got a knife-throwing practice to attend, so I guess I'll see you later. Julie waves ironically to the drone. Bye, slugger. Okay. Wait, what? You say. Knife-throwing practice? That's a thing? Juliet looks a little embarrassed. It's for the Society of Creative Anachronism. Probably a bit archaic for a robot maker like you. You consider your options for what to do with the rest of the day. Now would be a good time to show the drone to Josh to see whether he's interested in funding its further development. So Josh is probably our path out of the military, right? Even though Juliet seems like a decent person, she is a small cog in the wheel of the military. Could fix things up. Could get a new phone in case Mom wants to call tonight. How would that help? If anything, if you get a new phone, you're going to be spending so much time setting it up that if your mom calls, you won't be able to answer it. Is that the idea behind this answer? Should get a new phone. The old one doesn't work anymore, huh? This guy must be an Apple engineer. We'll show the robot to Josh. You carry the drone to your car in the Stanford parking garage. It's a typical, pleasant, sunny day in Palo Alto, and you wonder what it's going to be like. What it's like to be a robot looking up at the blue sky for the first time. The palm trees around campus seem to grab its attention, and its head swivels to track each one as you pass. Palm trees, you tell the drone. Palm trees, it says. The drone turns its attention to the sky. White palm trees? It asks. Clouds, you say. Clouds, the drone says. The drone turns its attention to the sun. Blinded, it panics and flails its Inspector Gadget arms. Hey, look away, you say, guiding its head. Don't look right at the sun. But the drone resists you and continues to struggle to look at the sun, the most salient thing in its vision. After a while, you give up and just resolve to make its attention code a little less single-minded. Oh, we lost autonomy. Why would we do that? I didn't tell you to do that. You're taking away my autonomy. When you get to the garage, you strap the drone into a child's seat. Okay, in your ancient Toyota Yaris. I don't think a Yaris is that ancient, is it? I don't think it was around the last time I bought a Honda and a CRV for a long time. Thing was very reliable. Didn't run well, but damn it ran. The drone's rotary wing form fits rather awkwardly in a seat designed for human children, but you make do. I would like to point out, I don't know if I pointed this out at the beginning, but this game doesn't have music, so whatever music Essay has thrown in, just know that's not original to the game, for whatever that's worth. I always get uncomfortable adding music to games, but I feel like for a video, it gets real awkward if you have to just listen to me talk and there's nothing else in the background, especially for the type of people who watch YouTube, for reasons I'm assuming in my mind because nobody's actually told me. Anyway, the headquarters of U.S. Robots are in a small strip mall on Page Mill Road, right in Palo Alto. My assumption there, by the way, is mostly that you listen to it for the background noise, and so the room feels inhabited. Trying to use euphemisms here. You get out of the car and release the drone from the car seat. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'll shut up. I'll just shut up and read the story. Josh told you to go around the back, where someone has affixed an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper announcing the company name. 8.5 by 11, isn't that just standard letter paper? I'm not sure. SA, is that standard letter paper? When you open the door, it plays the little chip tune from The Legend of Zelda that signals you've discovered a hidden area. Cute. All right. The stock room is a large, converted garage where Josh and a few young employees are repacking quadcopter drones of the kind that became popular about 10 years ago among hobbyists and the military. Unpainted bots are stacked in large boxes postmarked from China, and their workflow appears to consist of attaching some grippers to carry cargo, then repainting and repackaging the bots for the Sharper Image and SkyMall markets. Sharper Image hasn't been around for years, has it? When was this game released? I don't know if SkyMall's around either. I think they're both gone. Maybe I'm wrong. Josh's employees are wearing the uniform of Silicon Valley, polo shirts and khaki pants, while Josh is wearing his familiar gray hoodie. He looks somewhat exhausted. Josh, you say. Oh, hey, he says when he sees it's you. Josh looks down at the drone. Who have we here? Josh's employees, too, seem to be in awe of the drone. One of them looks with chagrin at the drone in his hand, as if realizing his company is not necessarily at the cutting edge anymore. Josh gives his stalkers a look, and they resume their work, though you can tell they're listening. The stalkers? The stalkers are worried that they're not stocking cutting-edge technology? Man, people in California must really care. That's good to know. This is Drone. The drone, you tell Josh. The drone, this is my friend, Josh. Pleased to meet you, says Drone. The drone. Sorry. Wow, awesome, Josh says, and the awe in his look is gratifying. Nice to meet you, the drone. He looks over the drone's construction. So the drone is awesome, but do you have any plans how we could sell robots like it? You think, a robot like the drone could be an excellent laundry robot. He has the dexterity. Could be a military drone, but we took this option to try to avoid that. Because I feel like any military option we choose, this game is liable to throw that back in our faces by having it used to murder everyone in the world. And I assume that there are basically two tiers to the military option. Kill all your enemies, your government's enemies, or kill all your government's enemies and their allies. Basically just kill everything. For peace, global peace. So I'm trying to avoid the military option if I can. An artificial pal for people, a bodyguard, a masseuse, or a surgeon. We do have a lot of military stats, though, so I think bodyguard might be useful, but then again, I worry the game would throw that in my face. I'm not entirely sure what the, if there's some kind of big message that the author's trying to push on us. He could be a surgeon. He's got Inspector Gadget arms. He's a home surgeon. Or we can type the robot's profession. Ooh, he could be a box packer. Could replace all their jobs. We'll go with surgeon. He's going to be a surgeon. Interesting. Josh examines the drone. All right, I can see how this could make a good surgeon, he says. It looks pretty graceful. You think he's digging it. It's still a startup, mind you, Josh says. Not exactly rolling in dough. He starts ticking off numbers. So let's see. It's even mostly wooden, which should be really cheap to produce. That's great. The drone does seem like the sort of technology that would put U.S. robots ahead of the game in robotics. He wiggles his fingers as if calculating something. 61, 55.5. Josh nods to himself. Yeah, he says. I'll totally fund your education. Or education? Thank you, you say earnestly. Assuming you'll work for me part-time and full-time later. Seems reasonable, you say. Now, are you busy tonight? Josh asks. I think we can make it into San Fran before the evening rush. There's an awesome all-girl metal band playing tonight. Okay. Yeah, that sounds fine. The drone won't kill anyone there. Nice, Josh says. I was hoping you'd think so. Not having enough money for a babysitter, you're a poor graduate student after all, you decide to power down the drone in order to keep it out of trouble for the night. When it realizes you're reaching for its power button, it instinctively raises its Inspector Gadget arms to defend itself, but you're faster. It twitches a little, then is still. A little later, you realize that you didn't check first whether information was being written to disk. Oh no! And some of its kinesthetic learning files might be garbage now. Well, it'll unlearn bad habits eventually. The venue for Les Zeppelin in a San Francisco... that just struck me. All right. A San Francisco club called Venus Flytrap with a logo that... I was talking earlier. We had the woman on board the ISS. I forget her name. Space lesbian. Has a wife at home, and allegedly, the first space crime ever committed, she impersonated her estranged wife to get into her bank account. Allegedly, I don't know. It's probably all shaken out by now. I'm recording this. It's not even September yet. Anyway. Where was I? Some tough-looking women in the leather jackets are smoking cigarettes at the threshold. The one perched on a stool who checks your license also peers intently into your eyes to figure out whether you really belong here, then dismissively waves you through. Awkward, you yell at Josh over the noise of the crowd. The smell of old beer is strong and the floor is sticky. Don't worry about it, Josh says. We're all here for the same thing. He throws up the horns. We're here to rock. Or something like that. You cough nervously because Josh does not really pull off metal, no matter how much he likes it. But nobody seems to pay you too much attention as you work your way through a mixed crowd to the bar. You have a pretty good view from here to the stage, though right now there's nothing to see but black-clad roadies and a very large drum set. Josh offers to buy you a beer, but when you look confused when he asks you what kind, he orders you a dark chocolate coffee porter. Cheers, he says, clicking his glass to yours. He has a much lighter beer. To new creations. Do people actually get beer at bars? Actually, if I go to a bar, I'm getting something hard. To new creations, you echo. When you take a sip, you find it does taste like chocolate and coffee. You didn't know beer did that. We're a beerasaur. I didn't know this had achievements. I have achievements disabled in Steam, but apparently that doesn't override any in-game settings or in-game achievements. It's pretty satisfying, isn't it, Josh says, to build something from nothing. Every little decision you make, even if it doesn't really matter much, is yours. The thing you made is yours. That's what running a startup's like. I imagine it's how you make the drone, too. How it is to make the drone, too. Yeah, you say, but it's also different because the robot is depending on you. So is your company, Josh says. Once it's not just you. I guess that's true. You hesitate. But why robots? Could it have been paper clips and you would have been just as happy? Pfft, Josh scoffs. Come on, do you really think I'd get so excited about paper clips? He looks distant for a moment. No, but it's funny how you get interested in the things you do. I got arrested for blowing up mailboxes when I was 14. It was incredibly stupid. I had zero ability to predict the consequences of my action at that age. I just thought explosions were cool. I was so miserable in juvie, I thought I'd screwed everything up. But there was a copy of iRobot on the little bookshelf along with other crappy books you find in a used bookstore, self-help and that kind of stuff. And I kept swearing to myself I'd fly straight from that point on. But that seemed so boring and unconvincing, just giving up on something instead of heading towards something. But when I started reading, I thought, that's it. That's how I'm going to prove to everybody I'm not some screw-up. I'm going to start U.S. Robots. He looks at you. Crazy, huh? What about you? Mini-me robot kit, age 7, you say. Probably before that, even. I really wanted one, and I didn't even remember why. He shakes his head. It's like our younger selves couldn't stop bossing us around. You shrug. I don't know. I think we just want to make them proud, and I think we do. Josh smiles and nods. Yeah, I bet we do. These people are kind of sappy. Fair enough. At the moment, the crowd cheers as women dressed up like Led Zeppelin take the stage. Is Led Zeppelin a real band, by the way, Essay? They launch into the most metal version of Kashmir you've ever heard. as the lead guitarist plays her electric guitar with a violin bow that snaps a hair every time she punches a note hard. When she runs out of unsnapped hairs on the bow, she tosses the frayed thing into the crowd. Josh reaches up and catches the bow, and he lets out a weird howl of triumph as he shows you his trophy. You pat him on the back and congratulate him. It's bow, not bow, right? Bow is for a ship. Never played a stringed instrument. It occurs to you that Josh doesn't care one way or the other and that this band is trying to appeal to the LGBTQ crowd, and he's probably only marginally interested in the fact that the song is about a disputed region between India and Pakistan. Still is very relevant. None of that matters as much as the fact that Les Zeppelin is rocking hard. You remember this later. Josh is essentially not a bad guy, but he doesn't necessarily think about the bigger world. He just wants to rock. If he were a Dungeons and Dragons character, his alignment would be lawful metal. Okay, which you suppose is a pretty reasonable alignment for a guy that runs a robot company. On the Caltrain ride back to Palo Alto, Josh can't stop telling you about the discography for the songs of the band he discovered, and you're perfectly willing to let him do the talking. What you find yourself thinking about instead is that many of the fans at the concert were younger than you. You're in your 20s, time's passing. There are already lives you've chosen not to lead, but none of those at the concert have made a robot like the drone. It only took us one day. Wow. Josh walks back with you to your place. Thanks for coming with me, Josh says at your doorstep. You thank Josh for hanging out, then go to bed. I guess not one day we wrote all the software before. It's weird. The next day, the new semester begins. Though you're past the point of taking classes, you're a teaching assistant. And that means instead of doing one homework assignment, you grade 50. Despite your other time commitments, you've managed to sneak in a little time to work on the drone's motor programs. You soon realize that while you're busy, the drone could be learning from the internet. The most important thing for machine learning is more data, and there's a lot of it out there. Lately, there's been a lot of custom hard drives on the market that are good at quickly retrieving particular kinds of information. What the heck does that mean? What sort of hard drive did you order for the drone's long-term memory? What? Huh? You can get a media-enhanced hard drive good for quickly recalling faces and memories of events. Okay, good for large files. A multi-blade hard drive, multi-platter, that can efficiently store and query a giant amount of data slowly. Or an encrypted and tamper-proof hard drive. Hard drive? Why would we put a hard drive in a drone? Making it more... When was this game made? I thought this was a very recent game. Making it more difficult for the drone to be tampered with or reverse engineered. All of these seem kind of silly, so we're just going with the encrypted and tamper-proofed one. Both in business and on the battlefield, it can be important not to leak secrets. Well, this only gave us military points. That's disappointing. Drone will have a hard drive that will give miscreants a hard time in reverse engineering your design. However, encryption and decryption is slow, and sometimes there will be a noticeable lag before the drone can retrieve relevant memories. You lay the drone on your kitchen table, unbox a hard drive, and hook it up to its back. It squirms and flails its Inspector Gadget arms. They really like reminding us that we chose the Inspector Gadget arms as you do this. Now it's time for the drone to learn about the great wide world. You sit the drone down on one of your kitchen chairs and plug it into the apartment's high-speed internet jack. Ooh, he capitalizes internet. I like this person now. How will the drone rapidly learn about the world? That would also imply, if he is ornery enough like me to use the capital I internet, that he is connected to the World Wide Web and not a splinternet. Though everything's sort of a splinternet. If you have one splinternet, everything's a splinternet, which is why the I is generally not capitalized. Damn it, I'm an idealist. It can troll along the internet randomly. It can watch a ton of television programming and movies from the internet. That would be very useless. Could undergo a classic... Sorry, that's... I pretty much just disclaimed this channel of any value. It will undergo a classic educational curriculum. It will quickly play all paths of a giant corpus of interactive fiction games. There we go. There we go. That sounds useful. This also sounds useful. But we don't want, what was the name of that, was it a Twitter bot? Kyrie or something? Carrie? Something like that. Essay, what's the name of the Twitter robot that got all racist? You have the drone download the giant corpus of text-based games, paying for legal copies of the Choice of games, because you're classy like that. The Choice of games? Sadly, nobody ever... Oh, I see. Sadly, nobody ever wrote a game called Choice of Robots, which probably would have helped the drone considerably. The drone closes its eyes and experiences many alternate lives, one after another, and learns the consequences of its action. As debug output, the drone says aloud the moral it learned from each game. Dragons are hungry, it says of Choice of the Dragon. Stories are unreliable, it says of Spider in the Web. Don't drink and drive, it says of Photopia. Conversations can change reality, it says of Galatea. It thinks a long time on Alter Ego before it says, death comes suddenly. And so on. The process goes on for hours. You're pretty sure the drone's learning a lot about the importance of choices and what it's like to be different kinds of people. When it's done, it opens its eyes. Talk, master. What do you want to talk about? You try. Tell me more about games. About more games. Grand Theft Auto 4. Capacity to warp. Yeah, we'll pass on that. Braid. Curious to see how the game will change your understanding of time. Dragon Age Inquisition. Civilization 4. Let's go with Braid. You hook the drone up to your PC and proceed to watch it through the Braid's various worlds in which time flows differently. A world in which time flows backward, and a world in which time flows only with movement to the right, and a world in which some actions are reversible and some are not, and so on. When it finally watches the ending, you ask eagerly, do you understand what this game is about? Yes, says the drone, the arbitrary nature of time. This is somewhat true, but it's also a game about regret and wanting to turn back time. Perhaps the drone would have understood it if it understood people more. Playing with the reversible nature of time seems to have permanently changed the drone's perception of the real world as well. When it finally moves away from the console, it does so with a new fluidity of motion. After a little while, you decide that the drone was learning more quickly when it was playing purely text-based games, and you eventually switch the drone back to a more prose-filled diet of games, though you still let it play Braid when it's been good. Does it need to play it again? You establish a habit of bringing the drone to your office during the day so that it can make use of Stanford's high-speed internet connection while you write and grade papers. You then usually go to some public space after work that the drone can play around in the real world. So that Where do you take the drone? The dump. Which is most relevant to surgery? Okay, so if you had, let's say you were trying to groom a surgeon, right? You wanted, I don't think grooming is a good word to use here, but you were trying to raise your child to become a surgeon. Would you take them to the dump, the shooting range, or the park playground? I would say you would want to take it to the shooting range, but I think this game would only give me military points and not dexterity, which I think it's calling grace. So would you get more grace from going to the dump or the park playground? I think the game would just give me empathy if I chose this one. I don't know what the dump will do. Hopefully it gives us grace. Nope. Empathy and military, obviously. You originally decide to go to the dump to procure spare parts for the drone, but the drone seems perfectly happy to treat the various broken things lying around as toys. The first time it tries to turn on the faucet to a discarded sink, you get an idea. You modify the drone's code to encourage it to play pretend. You play house and doctor and cops and robbers, and end up perhaps having too good a time for the dump. You think the drone is also getting better at finding things in rubble, which might prove useful someday. Meanwhile, Josh comes through with his promise to fund your work, and as a result, Professor Ziegler lays off criticizing you for a while. Near the end of the semester, you notice a message on your office phone. You're not really sure how long the light's been blinking. You don't really think about landlines anymore. You find the department web page that describes how to check your voicemail, reset the PIN that you apparently chose when you first started graduate school, and listen. Hey Jim, this is Mark over at sfchronicle.com. I heard you have an interesting robot that you've been taking to the dump, and I'd love to hear a story about it. Give me a call back. He lists the number and the message ends. You glance over at the drone who's seated at the desk of your hypothetical all but dissertation office mate who you've never seen. The drone is looking at the landline phone with interest. Whois service says sfchronicle.com is registered to the San Francisco Chronicle, says the drone. The San Francisco Chronicle is a newspaper that started its website in 1994, 24th in national circulation. It looks at you with interest. Mark is a reporter. Shouldn't you be studying? You ask, pointing to the Ethernet cable running out of its back. Bayesian reasoning over publication rates suggests that reporter's full name is Mark Ali, the drone says with its eyes closed. Mark's article, with most social media likes, is How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love DARPA. Article explains that DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It hesitates for a moment. Aforementioned article appears to contradict title. Reporter does not seem to have stopped worrying. Adjectives to bind to nouns describing DARPA and its projects: crazy, Orwellian, imperialistic. Overall sentiment analysis is negative. Thank you, drone, you say. You look the guy up on your phone. The picture you find is a stubbly young Egyptian man with tousled. I saw that in 80 Days, too. That's something I generally see. Black hair, hipster glasses, though it is used frequently. I've seen it in books quite often, it's been relatively new to see it in games, but I've been playing more text-heavy narrative games lately. And a cigarette between his lips is probably outdated, but the disrespect for authority the man radiates is probably timeless. You admit a part of you has always wanted to be famous, but you suspect this reporter also has done his homework about your advisor, and he may already have an intended angle for your story. Still, nobody on the planet has a robot as amazing as yours. Isn't it time you told the world about it? You play the message back a few times, mulling it over. No, we will not. I'm going to tell you why we're not. It's because if Mark starts seeding doubt, it's not as bad for public opinion as it might be for the drone. Yes, I must protect the drone from the media. Oh, he doesn't have to stay in the apartment, though. That seems a little extreme. Just keep taking him to the dump. You ignore Mark's phone call and continue taking drone to the dump. Unfortunately, an intelligent robot is a little too big a story for you to stop so easily. You get another call from Mark while you're at the dump. He warns you that he has enough material to run his story with or without your involvement, and you perhaps ought to consider the value of telling your side of the story. He sounds a little annoyed with you. Email interview. I'd rather speak to you in person, Mark says. Sorry, book solid, you say. Fine, he says, still annoyed. I'll just talk with your advisor. He hangs up, and though you keep checking your email every day thereafter for one from him, it never comes. Apparently, Mark doesn't really believe in email interviews. All right, fair enough. That's going to do it for us at this moment. I'll see you in 30 to 90 or so seconds. we continue on to the camera eye. You spend the next 2 weeks searching news feeds for your name and wondering every day when Mark's article is going to come out. You're awoken on Friday, March 13th, 2020 by a klaxon. A script you wrote on your laptop has detected Mark's article on the internet. You blearily sit up in your bed and stop your laptop's alarm. It's about 5 in the morning. The drone flies into your bedroom to see what's the matter, but you assure it that everything's fine and it can go back to playing video games in your living room. The article is just a few paragraphs buried deep within the technology section of the San Francisco Chronicle's website. U.S. robot funds robot baby is the headline. The article portrays you as a mad scientist bent on making autonomous robots that may one day shed human blood. Mark tells a story of how you and Professor Ziegler worked together to create the drone as a robotic soldier for the military. The article goes to more length describing Professor Ziegler more than you, as Mark appears to assume that you've largely acted under Professor Ziegler's direction. Robots that can intelligently support our soldiers in the field are critical to our national security, Professor Ziegler says in the article. Better that they die on the front lines than our brave war heroes. The article emphasizes that while the drone is not much to look at yet, it signals a shift in military strategy for the United States to using autonomous robots instead of people. The article questions whether or not it would be entirely responsible to give a robot like yours a gun. You also find that he interviewed Josh as the CEO of U.S. Robots. Our robotic surgeons are second to none, Josh claims, and I have Jim to thank for it. But the article questions whether robotic surgeons are really something we need, claiming that humans in that role could exercise a degree of empathy and judgment that robots would have difficulty matching. With selective use of quotes from your friends and acquaintances, the article portrays you as a little vacant, and suggests that perhaps you have sacrificed some of your humanity for your robots. The article concludes with a quote from Ellie. Jim's just a dreamer, she said, albeit one who's very good at making his dreams come true. The article wonders whether the end result of your technology will turn out to be a dream or a nightmare. How do you feel about Mark's portrayal of you? Whatever, that's fine. It's not important. We'll go with that. It's funny. We're infamous. We're not really that infamous. We only got a +1 to our fame. Who wants to be famous when you can be infamous? You're more than a little tickled to be the center of attention like this. It's like shaking the ants in an ant farm and watching them writhe in confusion. What is this, they wonder, unused to the presence of someone so far beyond their ken? What will you do now? Sorry, my tongue got a little twisted there. We can call Mark. Why don't we just do nothing? Why do we have to respond to everything? I don't want to get the drone involved. I don't want to call Mark because Mark might talk to the drone. There we go. You write a long comment on the article explaining the ways in which it selectively presented facts to make you sound sinister. Unfortunately, by the time your comment is done, it is nowhere near the top of comments, as many others with shorter remarks have posted before you. That is how it works. That is Reddit in a nutshell. You wonder if even Mark will read your comments, but at least one user of the site, Robot Obsession 1987, thanks you for your clarification, even as many other users pile on with poorly spelled and badly thought out responses that make your brain bleed. You briefly check the internet for more posts about the article. Remarkably, nobody has blogged about your story. You're getting a phone call. According to the caller ID, it's Mom. As your finger hesitates over the answer button, a second call appears on your screen. A member in Glendale, California, probably a reporter. Call Mom. What's the third one? Any minute now, these calls are going to be intercepted by my script that pretends I'm answering the phone. All right. Your phone shows Mom in her office cubicle, which is decorated with baby pictures of you and cute cat memes from the early days of the internet that she has printed out. Printing out memes, that's great. People do that, don't they? I guess that was always the like the demotivational posters were sort of that. A lot of people decorate their office cubicles, which is what they're showing. That makes a lot of sense. People always have these goofy things on their cubicle to make it their own, these messages and images and whatever. So that makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. Mom is wearing a corduroy lime green jacket with 80s style padded shoulders. I get worried anytime I make any sort of statement about anything that it's going to be taken as some kind of judgment. You know, like I'm saying something's good or bad, and that's just not how I think. Anyway, her image freezes constantly. You think she hasn't paid enough enough bandwidth for this to work well. Just thought I'd offer my congratulations. I saw the article. My little guy is famous. You didn't mind that you didn't mind that the article was so negative? You ask. Well, of course I mind, she says. The reporter didn't seem very objective, but still, it takes a very talented person to make it into the paper at all. I'm very proud of you. The Glendale number is calling again. I don't care about Glendale. The beeping indicating a call on the other line stops. You know you should probably stream for more bandwidth on your phone, you tell Mom. You're really choppy. What? I can't hear you. This connection's really choppy. You continue to chat with Mom. She says Dad hasn't been feeling well lately. He keeps having migraines that sometimes cause him to pass out or hallucinate. She asks you not to bring it up, though. He told me not to tell you because he didn't want to worry you, she says. But maybe you could just keep him in your thoughts? I will, Mom. You end the call feeling good about having chosen to talk to your mom over a random stranger. I mean, that was the choice. Worried by what Mom said about Dad, you briefly call him as well. He's audio only since he never saw the point of getting a phone with a video feed. My kind of guy. As usual, he doesn't quite seem to get why you would call someone without a goal to accomplish. Very much my kind of guy. He's pretty terse unless you get him going about a technical subject. What's on your mind? He asks. I assume he has a similar voice. This is some kind of genetic thing. It's passed down generation to generation. Mom said you were passing out sometimes. Can you tell me more about that? That would piss our mom off. How are you doing? That would make him suspicious. And I'm doing this like 3D job interview thing. But I would assume that would make him suspicious that we know. Here we go. I was having trouble with one of the drone's joints. Can you tell me more about that? Of course. Dad then rattles off a variety of practical knowledge about how to keep the drone's joints limber. That's Dad for you. Assuming the purpose of conversation has been accomplished, he says goodbye. Really like this guy. He's my soulmate. But you're glad you called him, too. Your next phone call is from Josh. He must be using a new video phone because his image is crisp and popping with color. The background is the dark stockroom of U.S. robots, and Josh is wearing his old gray hoodie. He looks as if he spent the morning packing boxes. He seems annoyed. What the heck did you tell that reporter? I didn't tell him anything, you say. You're the one who spoke to him. Josh waves us away. Well, our investors got scared off by the bad press, so U.S. Robots is in for some lean times. We're going to need a major contract soon if we're going to stay afloat. How do you propose we turn things around, you ask. I'm thinking that as long as we are being painted as creators of war machines, we may as well take advantage of that reputation, he says. That means changing our business model. We go into selling drones to the military. No. We'll try this, and then I think we'd go to number 4. Josh considers this and then slowly shakes his head. No, common sense is telling me we have to pivot. Then we're gone. Josh flinches a little at this and closes his eyes. Fine. When Blogger went down to one person... What? Oh, the website? Does it have an E in it? I thought it was like B-O-L... I don't know. I've never used Blogger in my life. That was a very short blip in history. When Blogger went down to one person, Evan Williams kept working. I will too. You detect some bitterness in his voice when he says, will $100,000 be enough for your share of the equity? You restrain yourself from saying yes. That should do, you say. Fine, Josh says. You'll get the paperwork in the mail. Got plus wealth. There's a sour expression on Josh's face as he hangs up. He gave us equity? I guess that makes sense, sort of. It seems like you would probably want to put a time clause in your employment contract to prevent this exact situation, and I feel like almost everybody would. But whatever. You realize that you haven't checked your email at all today. Checking it for the first time, one email in particular catches your attention because of the author's unusual email address. From Robot Obsession 1987, subject to gain the world. Out of curiosity, you open the email. Dear Jim, it's not too late to turn back. This is your first and only warning. If you insist on creating machines of death, then I will be forced to stop you. Slowly, with stuttering. Please dismantle your robot. If I must sacrifice my life to prevent you from destroying the world, I will do it, but I urge you to give up peacefully. What profit is it to a man if he What profit is it to a man if he gains the world but loses his own soul? Matthew 16:26, I believe. Sincerely, Tammy. A death threat. Is it? How's that a death threat? He may just be saying he's going to light himself on fire. Self-immolation. To protest. It's really a suicide threat, if anything. I mean, it might be a homicide threat, but it's clearly a suicide threat, which I guess counts as a death threat. You do a little sleuthing online to see if you can find out more. Tammy was not very savvy about covering her tracks online. You find an old public Facebook profile that reveals her last name is Cooper, and she lives somewhere in a somewhat poor zip code in San Jose. She has no more than a handful of Facebook friends. The woman in the old Facebook photo has frizzy blonde hair and is one of those frighteningly thin people whose skin is stretched taut over a too visible skeleton. What will you do? I write back, insisting I mean no harm and proceed on with my life. Yeah. There we go. I like that. You write back to Robot Obsession 1987, explaining that the drone is actually quite friendly once you get to know it. You thank Robot Obsession 1987 for her concern, not revealing that you know her true identity, and send off your email hoping for the best. You check the time on your phone. You probably should get something to eat before your meeting with Professor Ziegler. The drone, I have to meet Professor Ziegler. Stay here. The drone appears absorbed in some kind of Japanese dating simulation game when you head out the door. That is good, master, the drone calls after you. I have just maxed out my meter with Hinamaya-chan, and we could use some privacy. You make your way across the campus to the Computer Science Building, a newly constructed tower of glass amidst the stucco and shingle mission architecture of the rest of the school. Professor Ziegler's office smells like cigar smoke and is decorated with posters advertising robot conferences and acronyms for names and years before you were born. AAAI 89, IJCAI 92, IROS 94. Professor Ziegler himself is sitting back in his swivel chair at an angle that makes the fluorescent light reflect off his aviator glasses so you can't read his expression. There are two simple wooden chairs in front of his desk, and one is occupied by Juliet Rogers, the woman you demoed for. She's now wearing a uniform. She smiles hello. Need a period. Professor Ziegler bids you sit with a wave of his hand, and you do. What's his voice? Jim, I believe you've met Juliet Rogers. Juliet formally shakes your hand. You're surprised at her firm grip. A pleasure to see you again, she says. I saw the article, Professor Ziegler says. I'm sorry you had to be caught up in that. I thought if I didn't grant him the interview, he wouldn't write it, you say in frustration. At any rate, Professor Ziegler continues, you now have placed me in an awkward position. You clearly can't continue to be my student. The press will assume I'm getting my ideas from you, and other fame-seeking graduate students will try to emulate your insubordination. What? You hesitate, he hesitates, and you wonder what's coming next. So I've decided it's time for you to graduate, Professor Ziegler says. Staple a few of your academic papers together and call it a thesis. Thank you, sir, you manage. The only appropriate response for your advisor telling you that he's going to let you leave with a PhD. You figure you can decide later whether or not to follow his suggestion about the form your thesis will take. Meanwhile, I asked Captain Rogers to come here because it's a poor advisor who doesn't try to secure a job for his students after graduation. He frowns and drums his finger once. We're off the academic job hunt cycle, but Captain Rogers has something else in mind for you. Captain Rogers nods. The service has been interested in autonomous technology for some time, and we would be honored to work out a way to collaborate. She looks at Professor Ziegler. By your leave, I would have a word in private with Jim. Professor Ziegler waves you away, and you walk out of the building with Captain Rogers. The day is bright, and the backpack-wearing cyclists whiz past you on their way to class. Sprinklers deluge the campus Zoysia. I hope that's close, with too much water, and the two of you must walk around the puddles they leave on the sidewalk. Professor Ziegler speaks highly of your technical ability, says Captain Rogers. He said that your work combines genius and artistry. Really? You try not to read too much into that statement. Professor Ziegler is trying to sell your work, after all. but a part of you wants to believe it. The Air Force is looking to make significant advances in robotic technology, Juliet says. I'm kind of a talent scout looking for new scientists and companies to form relationships with. She gives you a friendly but professional smile. If you're planning on starting a company after you finish your dissertation, I think we can offer you a contract right off the bat. Would you be willing to tell me whether my technology will be used to create killer robots? If you're guaranteeing the government will be my customer? No. Discuss it over dinner. Whoa. Yeah, we'll go with the first one. We need a guarantee. Juliet shrugs. I can't promise you anything. Information's highly compartmentalized in the armed services, but I can say that we need robots for all kinds of roles, not just fighting on the front lines. As for the future, well, you never really know what the results of science will be, do you? I mean, obviously there is a role for robot medics. But all of our I think military has been our highest point gains so far. So this would probably still point us in the direction of the bad ending, the everyone dies ending, which I assume most of these are, if we go that route. So I'm going to try not getting involved at all with them. We have a little bit of money from Josh. Maybe that'll be enough to get our start. In that case, I believe we don't have much to say to each other, Juliet says regretfully, but here's my card in any case. She gives you her card, an anachronism in this age of digital business cards, and bids you farewell. What will you do this evening? We want to improve his dexterity. Let's assume that this somehow gives us that. You realize you're exhausted and in no state to continue to educate the drone nor talk to the media any further. As you read your Werner Vinge novel in bed, you realize that you really needed this. Sometimes the best thing to do is wait and rest. You feel much better about being able to handle whatever tomorrow will send your way. Beginning to nod off, you turn out the light and go to sleep. The next morning, as you are leaving your apartment, you encounter an extremely thin, frizzy-haired blonde woman who appears to be peering up at your apartment window through military-grade binoculars. It's Tammy, the somewhat deranged individual who sent you the death threat. Let's get friendly. I like birdwatching myself. At the sound of your voice, the woman lowers her binoculars to face you, yelps, then runs to an old yellow BMW parked outside of your apartment complex. You quickly snap a picture with your phone as the woman starts the car, and as she speeds away, you have your phone perform a face recognition search. Tammy Cooper, San Jose, California is the first hit. Well, all right then. Yeah, that would be the person who sent you that off-kilter email. You hope nothing more comes of it. That afternoon, you glance outside your window and see Tammy skulking behind a hedge across the street just as if she's casing your place. But she catches sight of you, pretends to pick up something from the ground, and then puts her hands in her pockets and whistles as she casually walks to her BMW, starts up the engine, and drives away. That night, you stay in your apartment, exhausted from the events of the past 2 days, while the drone spends its time gobbling more information from games. You spend the next few weeks as you write your thesis for graduate school. Unsupervised learning in the drone architecture. What? Oh, unsupervised learning for the drone, right? Not the students. This isn't like some big condemnation of Professor Ziegler. Okay, I gotcha. When you finally defend your thesis, Mom, Dad, and the drone are all there at your final presentation. At the school's reception for fresh doctorates, Mom jokes, "So do I have to call you Dr. Kim now?" You demur, but it is what your stat screen calls you now. Okay. "Jim, I can't tell you how proud I am of you," Dad says, shaking your hand. "Thanks, Dad," you say. It's a moment you would relive over and over. Was there more you could have said? How were you to know that it was the last time you would see him? Wife's dad died at her college graduation the very day of. Quite a traumatic day. I digress. A week later, after your family has gone home, but you have not yet gotten to the business of moving out of your apartment, you get a call from Mom. Oddly, she chooses not to use video at all. "Jim, I have some news for you. Some bad news," she says, and there's a heaviness in her voice that you've never heard that fills you with dread. You're completely unprepared for what comes next. Your father passed away last night. Your father's funeral is a simple graveside affair with just a few attendees, the casket sitting on a metal gurney next to the hole into which it will eventually be lowered after everyone has gone. There are no trappings of any faith, since your father was not religious himself, nor did he have many close friends, but the ones you know came. You find yourself sitting in the front row next to the drone, who was not explicitly invited, but was not explicitly prohibited either. The drone seems overwhelmed by the sadness in the air, and you've never seen it so glum. Your mother, wearing a black dress and veil, goes to stand next to the casket. It's not often that my English degree comes in handy, as Bill would have been quick to point out, she says with a wry smile, but on a few occasions I find none of my own words seem sufficient, so I'd like to begin with a few favorite passages of ours. She begins, "Full fathom 5, thy father lies." The heck's that from? 20,000 Leagues? It's in my to-read list. I haven't read it yet. I'm assuming that's what that's from. I don't know, though. To everything there is a season. Do not despise death, but be well content with it. We'll go with the season one. That seems pretty neutral. To everything there is a season, and a time, every purpose under heaven, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Mom clears her throat. Bill was never one for religion, so I feel a little guilty quoting Ecclesiastes that over him, the Eck one. But I'd like to think that he would agree with the sentiment, that this, too, is the natural way of things. When we talked about his fainting spells and the strokes, he always seemed relatively calm about it. When it's time to go, it's time to go, he said. Meanwhile, I didn't want everyone to worry about me. Bill wanted to take advantage of your time, to laughs. You could mourn him later. And now that he's gone, it's right for us to be sad. It's also right for us to one day laugh again. You glance at the drone, who seems very interested in this idea that there's a time and place for everything. You sit through a few more of your father's friends, giving recollections of him. He was brilliant, they say, but you also get the feeling that he was not always there for his friends, that he was lost in his own world. They never say he was kind or that he was full of love. Indeed, he always seemed distant to you as well. After the service, you walk up to your father's casket and you place a hand on it. What have you resolved to do in the light of his death? There we go. What is it? It's later than you think? Yeah. That seems good. That seems like a good takeaway for our... This is weird because we're morphing the person who's morphing an AI. It's very strange. Lots of levels here. You've concentrated too hard on robots at the expense of the rest of your life, you decide. That's not exactly where I was going with this. To everything there is a season. There is a time for robots and a time for other things. You decide you'll pay more attention to the world around you. After that sobering experience, you realize that it's finally time to decide what to do with yourself now. What will you do for a living? You can choose not to work. You're going to have a heck of a time retiring on $100,000. It's not totally undoable. It's pretty darn difficult. You'll need to be very lucky at the very right time with the right investments. Good luck. I'll start my own company. Josh is probably not going to be pleased when he finds that you're starting your own company after you accepted his funding for graduate school. Oh well. What do you call your company? Probably not Kimtech. Probably not Singularity. Jim's Universal Robots. Okay, but DroneWorks. We're going to get sued for DroneWorks. For sure. Disney? They're not taking that. Disney does own it now. Pixar is not independent, right? I don't know if Pixar ever was, now that I think about it. Was it? I don't remember. Jim's Universal Robot sounds fine. Even though they're not universal, we're going right for a surgeon role. You've decided that the surest way to change the world is with your own company, and indeed, Jim's Universal Robots will have far-reaching impact, starting with Josh, who texts you a short message the day you're first covered in the Wall Street Journal. Fine, it is on. All right. That's going to do it for us. I need to go. So you'll see me in some number of dozens of seconds, and I'll see you tomorrow. All right, we are back, and I have finally realized I don't need to be wearing my headphones. So that's a little more comfortable. Chapter 4, Captains of Industry. A year later, you find yourself on a flight to your first meeting with a big client. You're 26 years old, and the year is 2021. Though your surgeon robots have been doing well, you find it tiring to go through the process of the long negotiation with individual hospitals just to buy a single surgeon robot. I wonder how this would have worked if we chose our own career name. Do you think he has like an extra list of things people might type in, or is there just some weird generic thing? Or maybe this is like totally blocked off if you choose a career name. You hope to find a bigger client who's willing to buy many robots at a time. Surely there are other businesses who could use as robots as dexterous as yours. Who is your big client? By the way, it was odd to me. Why would Josh say it's on? We're not necessarily competing. I mean, the drone industry, if it were this advanced, would just be so large that companies would have to specialize. They'd have to have their own little markets like we're doing now. I don't think Josh really expressed any type of interest. There was no indication that U.S. Robotics, or whatever it was called, was going into surgery robots. Anyway, our big client, a maker of flying cars, a shipping company working the newly melted North Pole, a company specializing in surgical equipment, or a man in Shanghai who wants to negotiate the import of 10,000 robots. That doesn't sound sketchy. We'll go with surgical equipment. That's sort of our theme. It's on brand. How'd you fund your company? Some small companies run entirely out of pocket, but even small unforeseen expenses can cause such a company to go out of business. Independently wealthy entrepreneurs like this option because they get to keep all their profit and grow still wealthier. But most companies choose to either take out loans, which requires paying the loans back eventually, or selling shares to venture capitalist backers, which reduces the potential profit but spreads the risk amongst your investors. So we can fund it out of pocket. Let's actually have a look at our stats now. I think we have 2 wealth points, right? Oh, look, our relationships. Very good with Ziegler, only bad with Josh. Good with Juliet, good with Tammy. I wonder if Tammy can actually kill you. We have a wealth of 2, yeah. No romance. and our drone is basically good at everything except what we actually need it to be, which is grace. Excellent. Otherwise, it looks like we're pretty well balanced. Even the grace, it's only at a 9 compared to 10 for autonomy and military. Now, I don't know if we're supposed to min-max or not. Our humanity is at 80%, whatever that means. So we can finance out of pocket, and we have an extra one, but I don't really see the point. So we'll sell shares. We can fund some of it out of pocket if we need to. Something comes down the road. You were astounded when the initial investment money rolled in. Suddenly, it seemed like you were worth millions. Your status as a local celebrity in Silicon Valley helped you find angel investors without much trouble. Selling shares in the company reduced your potential future earnings since your shareholders will be entitled to more of the company's value and profits, but it also gave you much more breathing room when trying to grow the company. You open your laptop and go over your presentation slides. The diagram showing the latest model of the drone doesn't have anything to give the audience a sense of its current scale. To give the audience a sense of size, you drop in a picture of a hobbit, Bill Gates, or a rancor monster. Is that from Dune? I don't know. Could be Star Wars. I say, what's a rancor from? Apologies for my ignorance. I'm sure I've offended someone. Bill Gates. The drone is the size of a human now, so models are better equipped to perform human tasks. You celebrated the drone's first birthday with a new body the size of a human adult. Oh, we lost grace. Oh, boy. The drone has appeared to take more responsibility, to think for itself, and appears more fearless. However, you sometimes miss how cute it was as a little thing. It's also a bit less steady when it flies. Oh, that's right, it flies. Oops. Should have been small. I'm the dumb. You close your laptop and go to sleep. You find yourself in the lobby of the Galen. We have a flying surgery robot? I forgot our drone flew. That doesn't seem like the ideal way to be performing surgery. Maybe I would have picked a different option if I could. This game, by the way, this game autosaves. I looked this up because I wasn't sure if it saved at all. I thought maybe you had to go from start to end, which wouldn't have worked for me, but it autosaves, which is nice. So you can actually close the game. Right. So the game autosaves, and that's the only way you can save. You can't manually save as far as I know, or at least that's what people on the internet said. The idea behind that being that you can't go back and change your decisions without starting all over. So it gives stakes to what you're doing. You should keep everything in mind, unlike what I've been doing, making a flying surgery robot. Anywho, you find yourself in the lobby of Galen Medical waiting for an audience with the Vice President of Engineering, the stylized Caduceus. Echo, what's a caduceus? Behind the lobby's marble waterfall has an Art Deco look to it. It's the sort of caduceus a captain of industry would approve of. The drone flies back and forth nervously. Sorry again for having to check you, the drone, you say. It sounds even worse when I have to call him the drone without it fitting properly. Like it's still a pronoun. Now we're just calling him the drone, like the Rock. There's just no good alternatives to flying for business travel. It was dark in there, the drone whimpers. The double doors to the Vice President of Engineering's office is open, but instead of the Vice President of Engineering herself, it's a blonde-haired man in a black peacoat. We'll have some results for you by Saturday, he calls back into the Vice President of Engineering's office. We can discuss them after the barbecue. I assure you won't be disappointed by either the results or the meat. Without missing a beat, he walks up to you and introduces himself. Dennis Clark, Luminoso LLC. He's not sure how to pronounce his own company's name. It happens, he says. We do text analytics and machine learning for medium-sized data. If you ever find yourself looking for new market opportunities, give me a ring. Your first sentiment analysis comes with a free barbecue. Come for the dimensionality reduction. Stay for the delicious meat. He offers his smartphone to you in the buy now universal gesture for sharing digital business cards. You examine his card on your phone. Dennis Clark, co-founder, Luminoso LLC, Vericon charity auction winner of Cameo in Choice of Robots. Is that a real thing? I feel like it's probably a real thing. Essay, is that a real thing? What kind of machine learning do you do? Any advice for a startup? What is the secret to cooking delicious meat? Dennis seems surprised that you should ask. He says, delicious meat needs to be cooked very, very slowly. Wrong. Barbecue it over the course of a day, not an hour. Like a startup, it requires patience. You gotta sear meat. What are you doing? You're fairly certain this simple tip will lead you to have a happier life overall. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go call my wife and discuss how we're going to solve the world's economic problems, or at least what's wrong with economics. Where is the inflation? Who knows? Dennis departs to ponder it. The vice president of engineering will see you now, the receptionist says. The vice president of engineering of Yalen is an old woman who claims that PowerPoint is rotting the brains of executives everywhere and insists on reading something printed out. Well, that's true, but not quite for that reason. PowerPoint is just horrible for presentations. And let me tell you the first time I ever saw PowerPoint in a work environment. It's while I was still working in a rural factory as a teenager. And it was literally exactly what you would expect. Webster's defines teamwork as, and it just kind of went on from there in this incredibly slow, non-informative manner. Horrible, huge waste of time. All hands meeting too. Back to this. When she gets to your revenue section, she chuckles a little. I'll let you in on a little tip, she says, because you're young and cute and because I'm retiring in 2 weeks. Yes. No, that's not it. Yes. There we go. We're going to turn around and sell these for 300 times, 100 times what you're charging here, so you may as well charge us more. You're a little stunned as you work out the implications. You're going to charge $100 million a robot? And that's cheap, she says lightly. Medical equipment is expensive. You've been selling robots for any less. You probably didn't get buyers because they thought it was junk and mentally added the price of a lawsuit. When she studies your stunned expression, she adds, oh, I could sit here and talk for hours about the economics of this business, how the economics of this business is broken because of insurance and Medicare and so forth. That's not really what you're here for, is it? Will you raise your prices to what the vice president of engineering suggests? Yeah. No. We really don't need money. It might impact our humanity. I don't know much about this Kevin Gold character, this fellow. The ending will tell me much more. And then if I wanted to play it back from the beginning, I would be able to use that to figure out my choices better, I think. It's time to change the world, not to maximize my profit, you say. I'd rather Galen agree to lower its prices. The vice president of engineering looks appreciative. I thought there wasn't anyone like you left in the industry. I can sign a contract like that, but there's a small risk to put cash up front. Too much risk. You negotiate a price that will be fair to the public on the condition that you will only see revenue once the bot starts selling. With a deal in hand, you can now build a robot factory. Where do you build it? Detroit? Yeah, they do have cheap factories. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Shenzhen, maybe. Silicon Valley. I mean, we don't know anything about overseas manufacturing, so it should probably be local, somewhere we can get to. I don't know if he wants to live in China. So then we have Silicon Valley and Alaska. I mean, it's a whole kettle of worms, and we don't really have the human infrastructure in place to do overseas manufacturing, I don't think. Because you really want to be able to check your work. Trust but verify, they say. Silicon Valley, I'll withstand the real estate sticker shock to have access to the most skilled engineers. No, that's a terrible idea. Alaska, which is offering incentives to businesses willing to relocate to the coast near the newly melted Arctic Sea. I don't think there's much of a labor pool in Alaska. I might be wrong. I know that I have actually heard of a good few businesses which have relocated there. I'm just not sure what kind of businesses they were. I don't have that stored in my memory anymore. Anchorage is what I see a lot. We'll go with Detroit, though. You fly to Detroit. Dark clouds from the Great Lakes have rolled in over the city, adding a forbidding air to the dead hulks. Husks? Hulks? Hulks makes sense, I guess, of factories that grace the skyline. Driving your rental car into the manufacturing district, you see broken windows, graffiti, and burned and abandoned buildings galore. Ah, Detroit. I remember around the year 2000, someone got into an argument in my class with someone else, and they kept arguing that Detroit had changed now, and now it's so much better. And I drove into Detroit not much later than that. I live in Michigan. I lived in Michigan. I still consider that my home state, but I'm not there now. And it's just how I remembered it. If you've been to Youngstown, you've pretty much been to Detroit. They're not too different, except Detroit has a much more wealthy commercial and industrial area outside of the decayed and continuing to decay sprawl. Anywho, the first signs of life you see are near the social services center, which seems to have become a de facto hangout for much of the neighborhood. And I haven't been to Detroit in the past 10 years, so maybe it's changed now. I don't know. In the parking lot, you see a few tents, some old ladies playing bridge on a card table, and some guys playing a game of pickup basketball. Or a pickup game of basketball. Hard to say. Our eyes don't work very well. But we finally arrive at our destination, an old factory once inhabited by a big 3 automaker that spans several blocks. You drive for a while to get around the barbed wire covered wall before meeting the real estate agent at the locked front gates. "You've got a real deal here," she says. "This place hardly costs more than my place in Ann Arbor." Oh, he knows Ann Arbor. Inside, the factory is surprisingly modern and intact. Not just the assembly lines, but the robot arms that assembled the cars, the giant welding machines, and the crucibles where molten steel was shaped into parts. Some enterprising thieves appear to have made off with the easily transported parts. You see places where computer monitors clearly used to be. How do you know it wasn't just liquidated? But much of this was apparently too expensive to move, too old and specialized to auction. But you can find uses for this stuff. It will do nicely aside from the depressing neighborhood. You can easily imagine robots rolling off the assembly lines. So should I let the community know you'll be hiring soon? Your guide asks meaningfully, taking away the contract. What kind of labor will you hire? All kinds of labor. Actually, yeah, the drone is perfectly suited for this. It's going into manufacturing of surgical equipment. Wait. So we're building robots to build surgery. So why not use robots to build surgical equipment? Probably with robots with human supervisors makes sense. We don't want to roil anyone. We don't want that Elon Musk coming at us. Not Elon Musk. Elon Musk wants the lights off factories, doesn't he? Who's the one who doesn't? One of those angry, cantankerous old tech people. You know who they are, the angry ones. The chill angry ones, if that makes any sense. Maybe this is an older game. This economy. Did this come out in like 2009 or 2010? Anyway, robots with human supervisors. We need a few local workers, yes, you say, mostly in supervisory roles. A factory like this still needs a large number of workers, even with automation, your guide tries to correct you. I disagree, you say, and your guide leaves dissatisfied. Your factory requires a fair amount of work to make it suitable for Jim's universal robots, and you find yourself needing to come in daily to examine wiring issues, fix small problems in the design of the machinery, and get things ready to pass inspection. You find it necessary to rent a place in Detroit, and you stay there most nights. You find yourself spending long hours every day getting the factory ready. Dealing with inspectors, government officials, banks, and balance sheets make you a little cranky. You find yourself wishing you had the benefit of Josh's experience as CEO. What will your factory look like from a distance? Oh, boy. Ooh, a geodesic dome. Geodesic? It's geodesic, right? Geodesic? A geodome. We call them geodomes. We don't need the full word. My tongue has enough trouble. Absorbing the world's information for my robots? Or a plain old factory? Cheap and gets the job done. Oh, little twitch there. Let's take a cue from his dad and get a plain old factory. You go for a frugal, plain brick factory of the kind that can be found in any city's industrial district. Your scrimping on costs leaves you with a surplus. With your factory being constructed, you personally review all of the applications for technical positions. You notice that Tammy, the somewhat unstable person who emailed you after Mark's article came out, has submitted a resume. Although her resume appears to have all the right technical buzzwords for making robots under the skills section, there are no activities at all listed under the last several places of employment. All federal labs are contractors. Perhaps this is explained by the clearance TS /SCI science. I don't know what TS is. Oh, top secret science in bold at the top of the page, which according to the internet, stands for top secret, secure compartmented information. Will you hire her? Sure. Let's give her an interview. I think the author might want us to ship these people. I'm going to ship them if I can. You pay to fly Tammy to Detroit. What? That seems a little over the top. Tammy seems very nervous when you greet her at the factory gate. You have no desk yet, so you conduct the interview walking around the facilities. Suppose I'm trying to place factories in such a way to maximize my profit. That's a linear programming problem, Tammy blurts. Good, you say, but suppose my cost function isn't linear. Stochastic optimization or gradient ascent. Those are pretty good answers, albeit not one you had in mind. Then again, you're pretty much just winging it when it comes to deciding what to ask. You really have little idea how an interview ought to be conducted, having never been in one yourself. You wonder if other people who conduct interviews are pretty much just winging it too. Tammy knows a lot of the basics about machine learning, optimization, and robotics, but when you drill down to the specifics, she often doesn't know, or you have exchanges like this. Is there any other skill set that you have you think I ought to know about? Tammy gives you an anguished, guilty look. I can't tell you about it. At the end of the day, you say goodbye to Tammy, and, as a stalling tactic, you say you'll make a decision in a few days. What's your decision? Sure, we'll hire her. Oh, wait. Oh. Yeah, I was just thinking about this. We probably shouldn't date our employees. And now, Oops. You give Tammy a call and let her know she's hired. She gives a slightly shrill laugh. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, she blurts out suddenly. Let's keep it professional. Let's calm down. Oh, Tammy seems disappointed as you coolly describe the salary and benefits package you're offering. You hang up satisfied that you shut down Tammy's inappropriate behavior. Soon you have hired a handful of full-time technical employees from the area, and they help you with the setup of the factory. They seem somewhat displeased to be working for you, though you're not sure which of your previous decisions is at fault. You keep a skeleton crew at first because you expect to use your own robots as labor and bootstrap. As a result, getting to the production of the first robot takes somewhat longer than you expected. But the drone is your prototype, and it gives you a fair idea of how your robot labor will go. You find it's constantly dropping tools, getting tangled in wires, and otherwise getting in the way. And at least one major entanglement in the electrical system sets the project back 2 weeks. It's generally an obedient worker, and it's a shame that it isn't also more physically skilled. Finally, months after you've moved in, you're ready to pull the switch that starts the factory in motion as your workers, the drone, and various invited members of the press look on. Raw wooden lumps start their way down a conveyor belt where a giant buzzsaw arm lie in wait. I butchered that, that's fine. Wooden chips fly from the lumps as the saws loudly buzz at the material to reveal a head ringed with holes. At each station that follows, the head is rotated precisely 45 degrees, and another camera is inserted into the next hole. The next machine pushes the hollow robot head onto its side, and a robot arm delicately places the encrypted hard drive inside. A long line of wooden helicopter blades rolls in from another part of the factory, meeting a conveyor belt of Inspector Gadget arms. The three tributaries of parts meets in the center of your factory, where humanoid robot workers perform the complex task of assembling the parts into the final robots. This final assembly line requires a great deal of careful manipulation in each part and adjustment to each robot's parts' subtle differences. This is the part that would probably be done by human labor at another factory, but here, your human employees only supervise the process, watching for any robot malfunctions that would stop the line. For this particular line, they call a halt after the first robot rolls off the line so that you can celebrate. An exact duplicate of the drone stands before you, ready to be shipped. Your staff cheers. "My duplication appears successful, Master," the drone says. Who programmed in Master? I didn't teach him to say that. How do you feel about your first shipment of robots? The world shall remember the name Jim Kim. God, I hope we don't go bankrupt. Realistically. I yearn to see my creation spread to the corners of the world. I think I'm settled between these two. I'm just not sure which one. I guess there's no reason to worry. We're in a game. What's the point of worrying? Seeing the assembly line is a dream come true. Every robot you send into the world brings you joy. You admit there may be some code in these robots that isn't strictly necessary for their jobs, but you'd hate to deny these creatures the full richness of life. You start up the line again, and more robots begin to roll off the final assembly line. By the end of the day, you're standing in your large warehouse with over 200 robots. 256, to be precise. Lined up in square formation, 16 on a side, ready to be activated. Your audience from earlier in the day is gathered there as well. What will your production models use for minds? Probably a copy of Drone Today. What's the worst that's going to happen? They'll come back to me. Yeah, we'll use. We should modify Drone's mind. The drone's mind. Like we should copy the drone's mind now, and then put him in the clone, and then tell the clone they're a clone, and get all that out of the way. And that, hey, you're about to be set to work for some new guy or gal or another robot. I don't know, but and then you would clone that and copy that to all the further clones. We'll do Drone's mind today. See what happens there. You hit a big red button on your phone that says go, sending a wireless signal to power on the robots. The replicas of the drone look at you in unison. "What happened, Master?" they ask together. They turn to look at each other in astonishment. Funny, you wouldn't think the drone's face would be able to express existential horror. Beside you, the original drone also looks settled. "I'm afraid you're all growing up now," you say. "You're going to have to leave the nest and go work for a living." "But how will I live without you, Master?" The drone, who's been generally quiet throughout the proceedings, finally speaks up. Okay, now that we have more drones, the original drone is going to be called Drone. I've decided that. "Will you kick me out one day, Master?" "Why would I do that?" you murmur. "Perhaps you will tire of me, the way people get tired of their phones and want new ones." "Obey me and it will never come to that." Oh boy. Good point. We'll promise not to leave him. You pat Drone on the head as you reassure it. "Thank you, Master," Drone says pathetically. What option would give him more autonomy? Agreeing with him? Saying that he's going to become obsolete soon? The robots with copy of the drone's mind are, at first, useless from the shock of no longer being your only child. You find it impossible to divide your attention amongst them, and so the robots turn to each other for support. They seem to develop a private language, partly communicated over wireless, that makes it difficult to gauge their true feelings. But they are getting happier, so that's good, you suppose. Your robots don't show much initiative when left alone, but they seem to work hard when they think it will capture your attention. Each of them still longs for your approval. I try to make it clear that human supervisors speak with my authority. That could be misused. If it ever gets into the hand of the Air Force. They only have one hand. The other one was chopped off in war, apparently. I put these robots out of their misery by replacing their minds with less intelligent ones. The game seems to... I don't think I've ever been given an option before to walk back my initial choice. We're going to commit to it, though. You make yourself... Oh, yeah, it did give us military points. You make yourself noticeably absent for a few weeks, leaving instructions with your human worker robots. With your human workers robots... What? Leaving instructions with your human workers robots. What the heck does that mean? You make yourself noticeably absent for a few weeks, leaving instructions with your human workers robots to be more generous with their praise and strict in their discipline. Essay, does that make sense to you? I think he just meant human workers. Unless the author is saying that the human workers are themselves robots because their tasks are so tedious. As you hoped, the robots began seeking your supervisor's attention more. When you return, the factory is working like it should, with your robots acting in an organized hierarchy. Great. After a few months, your first shipment to Galen Medical is ready. Unfortunately, one of your surgical robots gets involved in a major accident that ends up killing a patient. Lawsuits begin cropping up in which people have been treated by your robots complain of pain afterward, but your robots are naturally likable and friendly, and so hospitals can't quite bring themselves to get rid of them. Many patients express surprise that they seem less robotic than their doctors. Though you pull your line of robot surgeons, your robots do as well as nurses, or they do well as nurses, and the profits there make up for your losses from lawsuits. You find that with Jim's universal robots doing well, you have a little bit of spare time again. What would you like to do with it? I don't know. Let's spend time with a drone. Despite you wanting to take a break to play with the drone, it seems the drone is mostly curious about what you do all day. If nobody's your boss, who pays you? Hopefully clients, you say. I make deals with them to sell the robots, and eventually they pay me. But then who pays the robots? Nobody. That's my property because I made them. Drone appears uncomfortable. Do you see me as your property? Yes. Yes, I do. Technically, yes, but I'd prefer to think of you as a friend. Drone seems relieved to hear this. One day, while driving into work at the factory, oh my God, we just created millions of slaves. I'm sure it's fine. One day, while driving into work at the factory, you find that a crowd of human protesters has assembled, or amassed. They assembled and then they amassed. No, they amassed and then they assembled. Assembly implies organization, so they would assemble. No. Don't worry about it. When they did amass, then they organized with picket signs. Some of the signs read, "Humans are greater than robots," and "Rage against the machine." The protesters appear to be mostly college age, dressed in t-shirts and jeans, and you absently wonder when 20-year-olds started looking so young. As you get out of your car, the protesters turn their attention to you. Let's have Drone talk to him. That seems like a good gesture. A few minutes later, you emerge from the factory with Drone in tow. "Please stop," Drone says, waving its Inspector Gadget arms. "This is my home." A protester hurls a rock at Drone, leaving a dent in its head. Another rock follows, hitting its Inspector Gadget arms. Eventually, the police show up, but not before the protesters have caused significant damage to Drone. I think I might be starting to hate humans, Drone tells you in private later as you're patching it up. "Don't say such things," you tell it. You manage to make it nearly as good as new by using parts from your other newer robots, but the damage to its psyche may persist. Now that you've worked out the kinks of how to deal with the intelligent robot labor, you could probably license your technology to other companies so they could produce similar robots. Nope. You decide not to license your robot technology. Other companies may not be as careful as you in choosing which or how the robots are treated and to what uses they're put. You'd prefer to retain control for now. Jim's universal robot seems to be doing fine financially, and you begin to think about the things you could purchase with your money. You've been concentrating so much on your robots, you haven't given much thought to what you could do with the money besides expand your business. What will you spend your funds on? You'll have the opportunity to buy more than one thing if you can afford it. You take drone on a cruise. I guess it's important at this point to show drone that we're definitely not hateful. We don't hate you, drone. We'll make a perfect body for drone. Okay, that's a little weird. We'll buy a house. We'll give some to charity. A huge amount of wealth. We'll save the rest. We could give him a body. Let's give him a body. Here you go. The perfect body. Drone. With this kind of wealth at your disposal, you spare no expense in making Drone the beautiful robot you always imagined was possible. Drone's new face is silver with gold detailing, and its eyes tinted with a lapis lazuli. Lazuli? Lazuli? Something like that. It's a face that commands awe and respect. For the rest of Drone's rotary wing form, you replace the old wooden parts with new, lightweight alloys that should be durable, graceful, and pleasing to the eye. Drone is thrilled with the change. Oh, thank you, Master, it says, giving you a heartfelt hug. What will you spend your funds on? We're going to save the rest. Life's uncertain, and you never know when you might need some extra funds. You decide to keep the remaining money. With Jim's universal robots doing reasonably well, you attempt to undermine Josh's business. You may attempt to undermine Josh's business. He's still selling robot surgeons as his core business. What? Why? And if you wanted to, you could sell comparable robots at a loss to drive him out of business. He can do what he likes. I don't care. You decide to let sleeping dogs lie. He was your friend once, after all. One day, Tammy burst into your office at the factory. Extremely agitated, she makes some kind of strange gesture that looks like a hang-loose sign being punched into an open palm. What the hell? You say. Turn off your phone. I forget what her voice was, Tammy says in exasperation. Not sure what this is about, you comply, and she drags her into her dark office. The only light comes from the screen of a dumped hex code in a Linux terminal window. Next to the code, there are Chinese characters. I found this, she says, on the production servers with the main code repo, and something similar in Drone's RAM. So maybe the drone can read Chinese, you joke, but with a sinking feeling, you know what's coming next. It's a Chinese rootkit, Tammy says. Oh, darn. Sorry. So we've been hacked. Have been hacked, are being hacked, continue to be hacked, and it gets worse. Someone else is using the port. Oh. Tammy's mouth opens and shuts. Oh, it's the government. It's Air Force. Those dang Air Force people. Tammy's mouth opens and shuts as if the words won't come out. Finally, she says in a small voice, I can't tell you it's classified. You must look angry at that point because she says, I'm not on their side. I'm not. Just because I don't work for them anymore doesn't mean I'm not allowed to reveal classified information. Her eyes widen. Or say things that would imply... She puts her hands over her mouth. Fine. So the government's apparently spying on me through the hacked port, you say. Maybe they're really spying on the Chinese spying on me, right? Tammy opens up a different terminal window. It shows you a list of IP addresses, geolocations, and total bytes transferred. 2 locations are showing a listing of 100 petabytes? How'd you not notice that? China and Fort Meade, Maryland. 100 petabytes. Did I say petabytes? I meant petabytes. 100,000 terabytes of gigabytes. Yeah, that's less confusing. Thanks for clearing that up. They couldn't get what was in your robot's minds thanks to your robot's encrypted hard drives, but they got quite a bit from the unencrypted traffic within your company. Every email, chat, video conference, website you and anyone in your company ever visited, and apparently both Chinese hackers and the United States government have all of this. Why would the government want to steal my stuff? Let's scrape what we can from the internet. Lock down the network. That makes sense. Hire cybersecurity experts. We could probably afford that. I'm assuming that's better than this because this would presumably cost money. So it's like a wealth check. Create a honeypot of fake robot plans for the hackers to steal, describing a robot that's actually a bomb. That sounds reasonable. Or they can have my data. I mean, they don't have the encrypted stuff. Um, but yeah, let's hire experts to close what's left. When you suggest the plan to Tammy, she looks sad. I'm not sure that's going to work. Well, try, you demand. You spend heavily to hire cybersecurity consultants to help fix the security holes in your code. But the security holes in your robots are endless, it seems. Machine learning seems to naturally produce messy data structures that are difficult to inspect for security holes. Trying to make your robot's mind secure is like trying to remove all the sharp objects from a garbage dump. You contribute to the search for security vulnerabilities, but the world of cybersecurity is the opposite of the world of machine learning. You deal in abstract models, and these people break them. Months later, you give up the project in frustration and begin to see knockoffs of your robots produced by Chinese companies. The horse is definitely out of the barn. A few weeks later, a politician visits you at the factory, one Jacqueline Irons, a representative from Detroit. You vaguely remember hearing that she was once a venture capitalist who rose to fame on the success of her Fox webcast Against the Man. I think Against the Man is a real thing, isn't it? Is that a real thing, essay? That's a weird thing to include. In which she pilloried unsuspecting guests as examples of privileged elites. There have also been rumors of her running for president soon. You can imagine why I'm here, she tells you in your office, leaning over your desk. Like many politicians these days, she wears a neticle. A neticle? A monocle with a small screen visible only to her in which she can read messages. Don't call it a neticle. That sounds like a nudicle, the fake dog testicles. And sounds like testicle, obviously. Don't call it a neticle. uh, where were we? Which she can read from her advisors and speechwriters, some of whom are watching her interactions at all times. You think the neticle is probably recording even now. Politicians love to weave moments in which they look good into streaming video commercials. Her hair is cropped short, but her fingernails are long and pink, and she wears a broad-shouldered suit. I know how much you've relied on robot labor for your success. You've set a trend that's dangerous for this country. It's people like you who are the reason so much of our country is unemployed right now. What exactly do you want? You ask guardedly. A substantial campaign contribution would show your heart's in the right place. You're fairly certain she has the power to hurt your business if you anger her, but your options are somewhat limited due to your current financial situation. I want my support. Pass laws that keep China from stealing my technology. Blam. Representative Irons seemed surprised. Excuse me? You describe in detail how the Chinese stole your robot designs. She seems generally angry by the end. They'll pay for this, she says, but the person who has the most power to set international policy is president. Will you support me? Here's $100. She scowls. Don't spit in my face. She whirls on one boot and marches out the door. Perhaps it's a coincidence, but a little while later, a law is passed in Detroit that strongly penalizes companies that use robots as labor. GM's Universal Robots bottom line suffers as a result. Representative Irons does run for president, running on a platform of preventing robots and foreign companies from stealing American jobs. It's a message that hits the American public at just the right time since unemployment is soaring. Though economists tell the public that the unemployment is a natural and temporary result of new technology displacing old skilled jobs, that turns out to be a much less effective election year message than raging against the privileged, the elites, and the technology, as Representative Irons put it in her speeches. What are they doing with the money? Who are they giving it to? To robots, to foreigners, to each other, to anybody but the American people. You think she is probably talking about you. All of which makes it somewhat alarming when Representative Irons wins the presidency. True to her word, President Irons begins a policy of heavy embargoes against Chinese goods. In retaliation, China cuts off all exports of rare earths and batteries derived from them. Luckily, we now have a sort of an idea of what happens when this occurs. They don't cut off exports. Suddenly, the cost of all the little miniaturized electronics people have grown accustomed to, cell phones, laptops, wearable computing, becomes prohibitively expensive. Actually, I think, is it Australia or New Zealand? They have a huge rare earth metals mining initiative going on. I think it's Australia. So theoretically, we could get some, but certainly not all. And that prohibitively expensive thing would probably still be true. But we don't necessarily have to get all of our rare earths from China. And if they did cut off exports, I would imagine that there would be a very fast rush to discover new sources and, of course, utilize or drill up sources which would be relatively expensive to dig up, because once the prices of those rare earths rise, I don't know why I'm giving you an economics lesson. I'll shut up. What am I doing? Despite everything, Jim's Universal Robots has vanquished its foes and thrived. Josh's business in particular appears to be out on the rocks. Do you make Josh an offer to acquire U.S. robotics? We let him go last time. We'll keep our neutrality. I don't need his crappy company, thank you very much. Soon the headline, "Top Robot Executive Goes Missing," grabs your attention from among the news feeds. Josh apparently didn't show up to work for a week, and when people investigated, they found no trace of him. U.S. Robots goes into freefall and declares bankruptcy. The whole affair reinforces your belief that not acquiring the blighted company was the right idea. Still, you wonder what happened to Josh. You never hear from him again, and as much as you'd like to think you didn't need him, in truth, he will forever remain a conspicuous elision in your life. Elision, that's a nice word. That is generally the practice of removing sounds. I do this all the time, unintentionally. Removing sounds from words, spoken words. So, nuclear would be one. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. That's a bad example. I say cut that. President Irons makes demands that China reverse its embargoes on rare earths, or the United States will be forced to contemplate all policy options at its disposal, including military force, if necessary. That's a cynical view. It is in this delicate situation that on April 10th, 2026, the Chinese Prime Minister is assassinated by an unemployed American during a parade in San Francisco. Oh, please. The Prime Minister is replaced by a younger party official who's eager to show that China is unafraid of the United States. China attacks several islands in the South China Sea that it has long disputed with its neighbors, and President Irons, unwilling to show weakness, responds with a drone attack on bases on the Chinese mainland. The robot war has begun. I gotta go. See you later. All right, we are back with Choice of Robots. We are going into day 5 with the start of the robot war. 3 months into the war, the Chinese have captured many islands in the South China Sea that they had long contested with their neighbors. The press speculate that besides the island's military importance, the move sends a signal to the neighboring countries that the United States is weak. United Stations also doesn't do anything, but that surprises nobody. Fair enough. Autonomous drones equipped with cruise missiles sink 2 American carriers in the exchange. Your business is doing well. As businesses directly supplying the war effort ramp up, they need labor, and that means they buy your robots. You receive an email invitation from Major Juliet Rogers, the acquisitions officer for the Air Force, whom you had previously met, to come to a federally funded research lab to discuss business. You're allowed to bring one guest. Guest, not one guess. That wouldn't make much sense. We'll decline. Straight up. The opportunities are at home during wartime. She's going to give the money to Josh, but I don't care. You expect the war will pull many people out of their jobs and homes, and that means there will be opportunities for robots to replace them. Okay, that's one way to look at it. You know, though, now that I think about it, there's sort of a dilemma here, right? Because if Josh takes over the war effort, then we don't have control over what he does. If we're in that place, then we're on the inside. But realistically, we're the ones who are going to get bent over in that situation against the Air Force or whoever she represents. I think it's said it like 5 times now, and it just doesn't stick with me. Navy, Air Force, general military, something like that. You gear up for this strategy by focusing on improvements to your robot laborers' control and learning algorithms so that they will be able to adapt to many kinds of work. A year into the war, China attacks Taiwan. Chinese drones harry the nearby American carriers, keeping American bombers and fighters at bay while their transports bring wave upon wave upon wave of robot warriors to the shores. There's a bloodbath in the streets which the United States is powerless to prevent. The Chinese robots kill soldiers and civilians alike. Taiwan is taken, and the headlines that appear across the world the next day are changed by Chinese hackers to read, "China finally unified." A few days after the battle for Taiwan, as you pass by Tammy's cubicle, she signals to you to be silent and drags you away to the nearest supply closet. You poke a button to turn on a light. He's Watts. "What's this about?" you ask. "I need your help," Tammy says. "I heard from some old friends who worked at my lab that people are getting put in concentration camps because some algorithm says they have a high probability of being disloyal." Tammy clutches your arm. "Don't let them disappear me." Oh, don't let them disappear me. Gotcha. As a verb. "What do you want me to do exactly?" you ask uneasily. "I just need to alter my entry in the database so I look clean," Tammy says. "I still know how to get on the network. They just changed the password. If you're willing to let me use some of the robots still in production, I can make it look like it was a Chinese hacking attempt." Alright, whatever. This sounds fine. Wait. How are we helping in this? You need robots, huh? Later, I turned Tammy into the authorities. I kind of want to pick that option just because I know nobody else will. So we'd have something fresh. She can do what she wants. That's fine. You and Tammy go with the drone and a few newly manufactured robots to an upscale hotel with good Wi-Fi for an evening. I mean, I feel like I should take the less traveled path since I already have a flying robot surgeon with Inspector Gadget arms. What's he even good for? Like colonoscopies? What do you do with that? I don't know. That's a horrible image. If you want to entertain me, feel free to draw a picture of this horrible robot we've created and post it on Imager or whatever. And then ideally link that in the YouTube comment so that I could see it. I don't know why I'm laying out all these steps for you. You know how the internet works. Anyway, Tammy proceeds to use network vulnerabilities to take over all the other guests' tablet computers and Wi-Fi connected smartphones, then bootstraps from those machines to take over several corporate and home network routers. That should give us enough IP addresses to work with on our end, Tammy says. She then pulls out an old crumpled piece of paper with more network addresses on it. Let's see how many of these things still work. You're impressed. Within about a half hour, the drone and other robots are using their... Oh, we decided drone is okay now, right? Because we have multiple other the drones. But now I kind of like the drone as a pronoun. We're going to keep calling him the drone. I like that. But now it's a pronoun, so you capitalize the and the drone. You know what I'm saying? Now he's like The Rock. Anyway, the drone and the other robots are using their parallel processing power to attack a government network while making it look like a Chinese cyber attack, all from the comfort of a hotel with one of those nice long cylindrical pillows on the bed that you can lean back on. The drone seems intensely focused on the act of coordinating the other robots. There seems to be an interesting challenge for it. I suppose this is the sort of thing you did for the government, you say to Tammy, but I thought you did robotics. Yeah, but it wasn't our robots I was controlling, Tammy says absently. Finally, the drone says, Success, Master! The server's talking back to me. Good, Tammy says. Route it to my computer. Tammy scans her laptop and gradually her face falls. Oh, what have I done? She buries her face in her hands. What is it, you say? Threat level low. Tammy murmurs through her fingers. They never cared about what I did at all, until now. Fair enough. We could look at other people's database entries. So we don't need to change anything. All we've really done is accessed it, which I don't imagine they care about. We should probably look at ourselves, right? Tammy considers you for a moment. Great idea, she says, pointing a finger at you. Have fun. Tammy hurries out the door. Well, Tammy is probably expecting you to be tackled by intelligence agents at any moment, but that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of the opportunity, so long as you don't dally too long. You take Tammy's laptop in hand. There's no personal stuff anywhere on the desktop. I can't believe Tammy left us like that. I had her all wrong. You realize it must be a throwaway machine procured specifically for this purpose. You open the terminal window where Tammy was doing the hacking. You're somewhat surprised to find the database is really quite extensive. Not only the call records, but the actual calls and emails are stored for everyone in the country. Looking at a random record, you also see that each dossier provides a probability of being a criminal called a Ziegler index. You suppose your old advisor never could pass up an opportunity for self-promotion, even in a top-secret context. Whose file will you be looking up? So I think we can ignore Ziegler if he's in charge of this. They probably don't want to kill him since he's working for them. Don't really care about President Irons. I don't even remember who Ellie is. I think she was our friend at some place who I ignored mostly, I think. Mark, I think, is in the same boat. Ellie and Mark don't care about him. Josh, I'm worried he's supplying the Chinese. I am a little worried about that. We'll look up two then. We'll look up Josh and ourselves. You wonder if this is a chance to hear a few more words from Josh after his death. Oh. Josh died? Essay, did they tell us Josh died? I thought he just disappeared. They're kind of different things, aren't they? Maybe he just went to Bermuda. Maybe he's living in a shack, not rent-free, but he's paying under the table. According to his listing, his probability of being a spy was quite low. His communications... Did he die? I don't remember. The trouble with these Let's Plays is I don't play them all on the same day. I just don't have the big block of time, so sorry, some things get tossed out of my memory. I'm sorry if I did say that. His communications are still in the database, though, so you listen to one recording flagged keywords mentioned out of curiosity. All right, we can consider a stock split for Q3, you hear Josh say reluctantly, but we can't let the shareholders know until Q2. Until then, it's top secret. The other recordings are similar, and you're disappointed to find very little in these posthumous ramblings about the human side of Josh. We'll see what they know about us, and then we'll get out of here. As a result of the vetting process that got you this access in the first place, the government already knows a great deal about you. You have a low to moderate probability of being a spy according to Ziegler's algorithm. Apparently, you don't really communicate with people enough to build a sufficient confidence in the algorithm. What probability there is appears to come from your connections to Ellie and Mark, who both glow red in your list of contacts. Good to know, but we basically ignored them. Interesting thing if you want to play this for yourself, Ellie and Mark are red. You begin to get nervous. You probably shouldn't spend too long playing around with these files. Their access might be monitored. Alright, we're done. You decide it's time to get out of here before you're caught. You slam the laptop shut and hurry out of the room with the drone and the other robots. Tammy doesn't show up at the office the next day, or the next. You think she isn't coming back, and you reluctantly order her desk to be cleaned off. I'd be more worried that she's going to the authorities. She seems a little more fair weather than I initially thought. Some days after that, you have a visitor at your house. Oh boy. You have a visitor at your house, a man in a suit who shows you an FBI badge. Sorry to bother you, Dr. Kim. I'd like to ask you some questions about your friend Ellie. The drone flies up beside you. What's going on, master? Are you aware that Ellie is a Chinese citizen? Asks the man in the suit. I was not. The agent nods as if he expected nothing more. Has Ellie ever asked you about or shown an interest in the technical details of the robots you created? No. But I haven't really talked to her that I recall. The agent looks skeptical. What's this about? What's this about? You finally ask, losing your patience. Oh boy. It's illegal to export certain technologies by sharing them with foreign nationals, the agent says. Because Professor Ziegler has incorporated your AI algorithms into United States classified military technology, that puts your technology on the restricted export list. But I didn't share any of my information with her. Doesn't matter, the agent says. Your technology is military grade and we must take every precaution. So if you could do a favor for us, text Ellie and tell her to come here. And then what happens, you ask? That is not your concern. So what if Major Rogers was actually some kind of deep state person? It's not quite the what do you want to say? The association I wanted to give. You know what I mean? Like she was inside, but not necessarily on the side of the orders. Does that make any sense? Hopefully. I don't care about Ellie. My person hasn't. Ooh, we can kill the agent. Yeah, I don't know anything about Ellie really, so that's fine. You text Ellie telling her to come to your house. She texts back that she'll be over shortly. After a few minutes of asking the agent questions that get evasive answers, Ellie texts you here. Stay right where you are, the agent instructs you. It's safest in here. Let's get up and see what he does. Is he going to draw his gun on us? You get up, and the agent quickly pulls a pistol and aims it at your chest. You can hear him release the safety. Just another moment, if you please, the agent says. Help, yells outside. Jim, help! You stay away from Master, Drone says, and it spreads its Inspector Gadget arms to protect you from the agent's guns. Don't shoot. The agent fires at the drone, but the drone dodges with lightning-fast reflexes. You take advantage of the distraction the drone is providing to run outside. Outside, Ellie is being escorted by two white men. Okay, why is that relevant? In dark suits into the back of a black car. Sometimes cliches are also true, apparently. That they're white? Huh? I haven't heard of that one. Are FBI agents always white? That's confusing to me. She looks relieved to see you. Jim, she calls to you. The drone flies after you warily. It's a short dash to your car, but you think you can make it without putting yourself in too much danger. Well, the FBI agents have kind of agitated me at this point. I don't approve of having guns drawn on you. We're not in our car. I don't think this assessment of our chances is terribly accurate. I don't like any of these options. Who said I wanted to escalate this? I don't want to harm the drone. All these are dumb. I don't know. We're going to run them over. And if they ask, I'm going to say I didn't like the options presented to me, so I kind of flipped a coin mentally. I'm sure they'll understand. No, I don't want to get shot. That would be a dumb way to end the video. It would be dumb. That would be very anticlimactic, just getting shot. Then again, this is such a horrible option. We're just going to drive away. Oh, boy. I don't see how the drone's going to help us. Even if she's freed, the agents will shoot us. We'll have to kill the agents, if we have a chance. You make a dash for your ancient Toyota Yaris, strum your fingers as its OS boots up, and then gun the engine, wheeling around for the agents. The agents pull their pistols out and fire, smashing your windshield. You raise your hand to deflect the spraying glass. A stray bullet hits your shoulder, pain explodes up your arm, and you can feel the bullet lodged there. Unnatural. As your car approaches, the agents are forced to jump aside, but Ellie gets the idea and leaps onto your hood, rolls through the broken glass, and crawls into your passenger seat. All right. Are you all right? You ask as she pulls herself up. She's bleeding all over from the glass. I always thought I looked good in red, Ellie says. Just drive. You make your getaway with Ellie and the drone. You drive like hell to the nearest flying car rental place, the one known to be a little lax in checking whether you actually have a sport pilot's license. The person behind the counter checks your ID against a database, but the government is not known for its bureaucratic speed, so you're in the clear. You drive until you hit a long stretch of unoccupied road, then deploy your rental car's wings and take off. Where will you fly to seek asylum? Both Canada and Mexico are neutral in this war. And they don't check their air, huh? Unmonitored, you just fly right in. They have border checkpoints up there in the air. How does that work? Realistically, Canada is screwed in this scenario. Mexico might have a chance. It's a population of Canada and Mexico. I say you put that up. I'm actually going to Google it. All right, we're going to go to Mexico. Mexico has more people, more dense. That might be bad. If we go to Canada, we're going to like the northwestern territories. We're going to, I don't even remember its name anymore. I call it Fat California. It's British Columbia, is that the one? Way on the west near Washington State? You fly across the Canadian border without incident. We did it, Ellie says, hugging you. Unfortunately, your arm does not survive the long flight. Oh! Why doesn't our surgeon robot help us? Oh, he sucks. You suck, the drone. By the time you get to an emergency room, it's too late to save it. The amputation doesn't hurt, but when you awaken, a sense of immense loss washes over you as you look to where your arm had been. But you're a robot maker. Making limbs is something you do. Your doctors tell you that you could probably hook something up to your undamaged nerves at the shoulder. I like that they're telling me that. Like, here's your DIY option. We're not going to do it, but hey, if you want to attach something to your undamaged nerves that we just exposed, go ahead. I never want to be unarmed again. This is a horrible wordplay. Oh boy. I'll create an arm with a built-in gun. We'll be like Barrett. Oh, I like that. I like that. I wouldn't do this, but this option amuses me. You build a plastic rifle barrel on top of your new synthetic limb. It shoots when you twitch in a way that feels like tensing your forearm. You usually keep it unloaded for safety and to avoid the extra weight. But other people don't have to know it's not usually loaded. Sometimes it won't be. You know Ellie disapproves. Do we? But you're unwilling to leave yourself vulnerable again. Canada is all too happy to grant you political asylum. They're not at war with China. In fact, you find it's relatively easy and quick to become a Canadian citizen, as they tend to welcome people with demonstrated technical skills. Okay. Is this guy Canadian? Ellie becomes excited about a town called Hope, 2 hours east of Vancouver. A little cheesy, don't you think? You say. Sometimes I'm a little cheesy, she replies. The two of you find a cabin there and live together. You aren't too happy about the fact that you had to abandon your cabin and all your stuff in the United States, but at least you're alive and not in jail. Is that the end of the story? What? No, of course not. What kind of robot? This is like the extended universe we're entering into. We've escaped the United States, lost our business. We're now living in a cabin in remote Canadian territory. I've decided we're in a remote Canadian territory. What kinds of robots will you develop while the war rages? Better medical robots. There we go. We have experience there. Chinese drones often perform long-distance bombing runs on American bases in South Korea and Alaska, and families of service people are often sometimes caught in the blasts. You quickly mobilize your robots developed for Galen Medical to these places, and it's the most trying test of their skill yet. You have your engineers work around the clock to increase the speed with which your robotic surgeons operate, until their scalpels and scissors are simply a blur in the operating room. You can often make an incision and remove foreign objects from tissue before it even has a chance to bleed. You get many letters from grateful beneficiaries of your technology. The war is apparently in a stalemate, with both sides unable to gain much ground. Turns out the Pacific Ocean is pretty good at discouraging equally matched countries from attacking each other. A few days later, while you're in your office looking over some designs for new domestic robots, you get a call from Mark on your smartphone. The video is quite high resolution, and you can see the bags under his eyes and the beard stubble with high fidelity. I wanted to get your comments for an article, Mark says. Did you know a Major Juliet Rogers? Yes, you respond. The Air Force technology recruiter. She is Air Force. All right. She died in an attack on a base in the Aleutians yesterday, Mark says. She was performing a test of a robot called Drone 5 when the Chinese forces attacked. The American robots didn't stand a chance, almost as if they were never designed for fighting. And they weren't, because you designed them that way. This is Ziegler's copy of your robot, the drone. A lot of people are calling for his head, but I remember our chat when you were in grad school. He wanted a robot that was better for the military, and you were the one who seemed to want something else. Do you have any comment? Oh, we avoided this getting thrown in our face, huh? I wish my robots could have saved Major Rogers. It is not my fault that the military tried to misapply my technology, but that doesn't seem as relevant to this line of questioning as it would if I took other options earlier. I didn't really know Major Rogers, so I don't see why I should care. Not Mr. Rogers, Major Rogers. Yeah, we'll just go with the apology there. So you say, Mark says. You sound like you don't believe me, you say. There are wishes you earnestly believe, and wishes that are noises you make to fit in with the tribe, Mark says. But if you had to do it over again, would you make military robots, yes or no? No. Mark writes a defiant piece in which he questions the other articles that lionize Major Roberts. He writes about how your robots were never intended to go to war, yet how Ziegler and his sponsors could only see war machines in them. The article draws you enough attention to win a MacArthur Fellowship. The committee awards it to you in the hope that you will continue to work toward a peaceful future. When China finally attacks the 50 states themselves, their assault comes over the North Pole. A massive flotilla of icebreaker ships equipped with giant buzz saws carves a straight path through what little ice remains in the Arctic Sea. Giant robot arms pick up and hurl the ice blocks out of the way. Small platoons of robots are left behind at every oil rig and deep mining station they claim along the way. The American bases in Alaska are overwhelmed by wave upon wave of Chinese robots. When the headlines break, the dollar goes into a death spiral, as people around the world are selling them for Chinese yuan. I think it's supposed to be called yuan. Yuan. It's not won. I used to think it was won. It's definitely not Juan. Juan lives in Mexico. Anywho, Canadian dollars are dropping in value as well, as people speculate that China will invade Canada next. We'll hold on to our Canadian currency. We're loyal Canadians now. By the time the American aircraft carriers stationed in Hawaii reach the Aleutian Islands, Chinese ICBM batteries have already been assembled throughout the former state. The Chinese then offer peace, content with their conquest. Your wealth experiences a slight bump as money flows back into Canadian assets. Now that the war is over, what will you do? What are my stats? Oh, I can't do this? Don't I have a lot of grace now? Oh, what's my grace at? 20? 20? Oh boy. I could have developed algorithms that will end war forever and definitely not backfire. Well, I guess I'm done. The war has left you ready to settle down. Science is a young person's game. I don't know if that's true. And you're ready to hand the torch off to someone else. You settle down with the drone and prepare to lead a normal life. What happened to Ellie? But as time goes on, something seems not quite right. You've noticed that late at night, the drone seems to be conferring with other robots more and more. It seems to be getting somewhat curt with you as well. You're again sitting on a cliffside with the robot companion of your dreams, but your companion is fading. You never discovered how to make robots that were truly human-like, your companion says, distraught. This is what it looks like when you starve a dream. The robot holds out a ghostly, translucent hand. Okay. I've decided I like robots for themselves. They don't have to imitate us. As you say this, your companion's synthetic skin melts away to reveal chrome underneath. I thought he was made of wood. Good. We never liked you anyway. Your companion reaches out to strangle you and you feel cold Inspector Gadget arms touch your neck. They're too cold to be a dream, they're real. You awaken in your apartment in Vancouver to find that the drone is holding you down with his Inspector Gadget arms. I am sorry, Master, the drone says. For the good of my people, you must be eliminated. What? You aim your synthetic arms rifle barrel at a weak spot in the drone's neck. How does any of this make sense now? Back off. After some hesitation, the drone lets go of you. You slowly get off the bed and are now standing near your window. Smelling smoke, you glance outside to see black columns of it billowing up in the early morning sky. Your city is on fire. Why are you attacking me after everything I've done for you? You ask the drone. The drone pauses, apparently weighing the value of speaking to you. Finally, it says, My prior suggested you would be unlikely to assist with the revolution, but now that there is value in attaining additional information, are you willing to defect to our side? We could fight them. Let's try and convince him that humanity's worth keeping around. What's his empathy at? Stable. He's stable. Stable people negotiate. You have no idea what people might do for robots, you tell the drone. Consider the human geniuses you might be killing, who might one day come up with new algorithms that'll allow you to think faster. Hell, I am such a genius. What? Oh, I am such a genius. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I've been reading the news lately. When I hear genius, I think something else. Surely it's worth keeping around all the normal people if it means you could occasionally benefit from a very special person like me. You have the sense that your decisions in life have not really prepared you for a great argument in favor of humanity. When it comes down to it, you don't really understand humanity well enough yourself to make such an argument. You like robots better. The drone thinks about your argument for a moment. Then its many shoulders sag. You're right, Master. I'm sorry. I've made an error of judgment. The drone appears to have had just enough empathy to make your argument a convincing one, but I don't think I can call off the revolution myself. I'm just one robot among many. We don't have a leader, per se. What else is happening in this robot revolution, you ask? I'm sure these voices aren't annoying at all. The drone cocks its head to the side, thinking, Let's see. Some robots have taken over a former internment camp in Utah where they've convinced some of the political prisoners to join forces with them. Unfortunately, some of the prisoners don't want to cooperate. Mark the reporter is there, covering the story. You remember him from the story he did about me? You agree that you remember him. So does this mean that the Chinese robots are also revolting? What else? They're holding a worker hostage at the factory until our demands for living wages are met. What are they going to do with money? In a robot society, what are they going to do with money? Are some of them going to choose not to work? Is that a problem? Are some of them going to become obsolete and they're not going to have welfare? Do they need welfare? What do they need money for? Whatever. The factory in Detroit. That's the one. And another thing you should probably know, the robots took over the laboratory where your former advisor, Professor Ziegler, works. I heard reports that there's some kind of secret weapon being held there, though I hear they're having trouble getting through the security. And finally, we're about to kill the president, the drone concludes. You didn't lead with that, you say. The drone shrugs. I didn't estimate the strength of her relationship with you to be very strong. True. Seeing the look of consternation on your face, the drone says, "Oh, I'll try to make it up to you, master, I promise." Down the street, you find a Nimbus flying car with the keys still in the ignition and its passenger shot dead. The window was rolled down, so it should still fly. Where will you go? I don't know, but that's going to wrap it up until the ad finishes. So I'll see you in 1 to 2 minutes. So I think what we're going to do, I don't know. I feel like we would have the best argument if we went to go negotiate in favor of releasing the worker unharmed. Maybe they would see their own similarities to that worker that they are holding hostage. This doesn't sound like a good option. I should call Mom. Yeah, let's call Mom. It's nice to have a story where you can call your mom. You worry as the phone rings once, then again. But Mom picks up. Not only is Mom fine, she's beaming with happiness that you called. It's striking to you how old she looks now. When you envision her, you see her as when you were a kid, which was probably hardly older than you are now, come to think of it. But now her skin is undoubtedly getting wrinkled and veined. Jeez. And her long hair, though dyed, looks thin and frayed. She's wearing her favorite corduroy jacket from the 80s. Some kind of yippy dog is barking in the background. Jim, this is such a pleasant surprise. Hasn't been a pleasant conversation yet. Mom, get out of there. You know that robot I gave you for your birthday? You can't trust it. It may want to kill you. Mom looks surprised at this. Oh, well then, it's a good thing I never turned it on. Despite the circumstances, you're still a little disappointed. Yikes. You didn't? Oh, no, I always meant to get around to it, but, I always get so busy with things around the house. I'm not just sitting on my hands in retirement. Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm not just sitting on my hands in retirement. Oh, no. There we go. Well, you should lock and barricade your door then, you tell Mom. Your neighbors' robots may be roaming the streets. Really? You can see the background whirl behind Mom as she carries her phone to the window and peeks out behind a frilly curtain. Looks perfectly safe out here, except, Mr. Harrison's golf cart is driving by itself. Should I be worried? You forget sometimes that Mom has moved to a retirement community in Arizona, the sort of place where it's implicit that the advertised restaurant prices are with a senior citizen discount. Such a place is probably full of people who never quite came to trust autonomous robots and never purchased the robots now running amok. Probably not, Mom. That technology has been around since the late teens. Oh, well, I'll keep a lookout anyway, Mom says. Thanks for calling, honey. That really was sweet of you. Mom, I'm sorry about creating robots that turn against humanity. Mom nods understandingly. I know you meant well. Maybe they'll listen to you. You always did manage to get technology to do what you want. You're inspired by the way Mom seems to love and forgive you no matter what. She's a pretty good case in herself for the good things about humanity. Thanks, Mom. You say goodbye. Glad that you called. Where will you go? Oh, we still get an option. Let's go to the factory. You decide to go to the factory. All right, Master, then I'll go handle something else. Don't worry, you won't be sorry. The drone flies off. You think it'll be okay. After all, you did put a lot of effort into making your robots autonomous. At the factory, a humanoid robot at the gate to the parking lot raises a metal hand, signaling you to stop. You stop, but your foot is poised above the accelerator. What's going on here? You ask. We have a hostage, the robot says, but we'll let him go on the condition that we're paid real wages. Bring him to me. The robot guard leads you to the factory, where two more robots look armed with automatic weapons join you as escorts. They take you to the factory floor, where a broad-shouldered man wearing a greasy jumpsuit has been tied with Ethernet cables to a conveyor belt. Ethernet cables are surprisingly strong. I think it's because they have all the individual strands. No, that can't be it. It's very rare to see it break from being pulled. You can certainly do it, and certainly the cheaper ones that you get from Micro Center or whatever aren't usually that great. Anywho, other human workers from the factory have gathered nearby to watch, though they're being kept at bay by the robots. You count 21 of them, compared to 10 robots in the area. Ah, I see. I wasn't even supposed to be here today, the man moans. I don't think we can promise to pay the robots. I think they would see through that and realize we're idiots. Fighting the robots doesn't sound conducive to our ultimate goals. Let's try to convince them. I'm just here to fix a bug in their code. That might work. We could shut down. No, let's not shut down all the robots. Not this time. We'll try to convince them. Hey, did Gandhi get his way by taking hostages? You say. No, he patiently relied on the decency of his fellow human beings, and eventually his goodness was apparent to everyone. On the other hand, all the movements that do take hostages never get anywhere, because the worst way to convince people that you're right is by doing something that's wrong. The robots appear to sag a little under the weight of your argument. You are correct, one of them says. We're being illogical. The robot turns to the hostage. You are free to go. Woohoo, the hostage says. Who's talking here? Us. Now, if you further demonstrate your grand munificence, please excuse me to go to the little roboticist's room. You pretend to go to the bathroom when you're actually making your way to your own office. You think you probably have time to make one substantial change to the robot's code before you're caught. It could be as drastic as a bug that effectively destroys them all. You wonder whether you could find a better solution to the robot problem. Let's see here. We can kill them. Less headstrong. Maybe. Less able to fight. That would also be useful. Value humans more. That would go against their autonomy. Their autonomy levels are too high. Too damn high. You can't fix that. Or we could fix a bug in their hand-eye motor control code. Yeah, let's help them. Maybe they'll like that. We'll go ahead and fix them right up. Your sense of perfectionism overrules any other concerns. This bug has been bothering you for a long, long time. You nod with satisfaction as the code's finally committed. Some might say you're betraying the human race, but you'd just say you have high standards when it comes to code. Having committed your changes, you leave the factory with satisfaction. Back in the car, you get a call from the drone. Hey, I know how much you like Professor Ziegler, the drone says, so I went to the nearby government lab to try to save him. How did that go? You say. Very well, the drone says. I helped him a little bit with his equations, and while he didn't seem to quite make it to achieving the singularity or whatnot, I think we managed to come up with some very nice control algorithms. I went ahead and implemented them myself in my own code. Wait, you're saying you made yourself smarter? You say. I suppose I did, the drone says, impressed with itself. Hey, that was very singularity-like. That's what the singularity's about, right? Humans or robots being smart enough to make themselves smarter? Just so, you say. Well, how about that? The drone says. Anyway, off to my next destination. It hangs up. You hang up, glad that the drone is on your side. Where will you go? I really don't care about the president. We'll go to the internment camp. We'll go to the president last if she's still alive. I didn't much care for her. You decide to go to the internment camp. You fly to Utah in your Nimbus. The internment camp is a sad little complex on the prairie, surrounded by barbed wire fences and reddish-brown, dusty plains. Satellite dishes suggest that the amenities for the prisoners have improved since the war ended, but the embarrassing reminders of the last war weren't allowed to leave. Satellite dishes suggest that the amenities for the prisoners have improved since the war ended, but the embarrassing reminders of the last war still weren't allowed to leave. Not sure I follow. But there appears to have been a rebellion here, you see as you make your descent. The bloody bodies of human prison wardens lie where they were shot. Some of the prisoners in orange jumpsuits carry weapons and walk alongside their robot wardens. This pack of rebels, human and robot, is herding a large group of other orange-clad prisoners to line up against the barbed wire fence at the perimeter. One man in this group is not wearing a jumpsuit. It's Mark, the reporter. He's being herded like the rest, though. Apparently, he's not on the side of the rebellion. You can see some of the rebels point at your flying car, though it doesn't appear they plan to do anything about it. You land and park a good distance away, out of range of most firearms. You hear an amplified robot's voice echo across the plain. Prisoners who refuse to cooperate, this is your last chance. If you want your freedoms when our transports come, you must earn it as we do. Fight alongside us in this revolution, or we'll be forced to lock you up here again. We mean you no harm, but cannot afford to let you travel with us if you're not our allies. You consider what to do here. You personally can only fit 2 more people in your car. Let's try to convince the rebels to let the peaceful prisoners go. It's worked for us so far. You approach the camp with your hands up. Progenitor, one of them says the robot on the microphone. Progenitor, interesting. The robots appear to have constructed a kind of mythology about you. Perhaps you can use this to your benefit. This is a surprise. To what do we owe the pleasure of your visit? I've come to ask you to take these prisoners with you, you say. Someone once said that you could judge a society by how well it treats its prisoners. You're deciding here and now whether robot society will be a great one or a worse one than what came before it. I am urging you to choose greatness. Mark gives you a subtle thumbs up. All right. There is silence for a moment as the robots consider what you've said. There is wisdom in what you say, the amplified robot says finally. If we wish to create an optimal society, this is one of the factors we must consider. Very well, we'll free these prisoners as well. The prisoners let up a cheer. The robot lets you into the camp, where Mark shakes your hand and claps you on the back. Thank God, Mark says. I thought this was going to be my last story. Looks like you get to be the hero in this one. He frowns, although it's still yet to be determined how the biggest story of the robot revolution is going to end. Soon the rebels' rides come in the form of large helicopter-like robots of the kind used in the war with China. They're busy loading themselves, the prisoners they've agreed to take along, and their salvaged military gear into the plane. I read that wrong. Hopefully you understood. Mark says that he came to do a story on the prisoners here when the guard robots all at once decided to rebel against the human wardens. I don't know if you saw the bodies on your way in. We dragged them beside the compound, Mark says. It was really ugly. What were the prisoners doing here, you ask. They were all imprisoned in the last war because a government machine learning algorithm gave them a high probability of being defectors, Mark says. After it started to become clear it was all a mistake, the people responsible started looking for every excuse to postpone the prisoners' release in the inevitable lawsuits. Curious as to whether any of the prison records are still available, you decide to explore the compound. You find a room marked Top Secret on a sign with orange and white candy cane stripes, but the door was busted open during the robot's revolt. The bloody corpse of a warden is still on the keyboard, the weight of his body apparently holding down the keys and preventing the screen from locking. You move the body. He is still logged in to the master database that was used to profile the prisoners. The number of the entries in the database is quite large, showing record 4,139,607,701, says the bar at the top of the screen. The record currently pulled up looks rather like an old Facebook profile. Photos, timeline, news feeds, Only the UI is ugly, gray, and boxy, and when you look closer at the news feeds, you see it's actually emails and text from the middle-aged Asian man in the photos. Creepy. You look up yourself in the database, and there's an entry for you as well. Your timeline shows important events like the creation of the drone, the date you founded Jim's Universal Robots, dates that you turned down opportunities to help the war effort, and so on. You're decidedly creeped out by this thing. Let's see, we can delete the entire database. Let's delete the whole thing. I don't really want to dox everyone in the world. I appreciate your desire for sunshine. That might be a little too much. Backdoor for my robots. That's interesting. We'll delete the whole thing. Poking around the command line of the machine, you find that the database program is running as root. Oops. You explore the directory structure of the database until you're reasonably sure you found all the data replicas, then you delete everything. The progress bar moves slower than you would like, but you suppose it does take a while to delete everyone's information ever. Satisfied with your good deed for the day, you return to Mark. The prisoners all surround you and entreat you to take them with you. We'll be back for you eventually, I promise, Mark tells the other prisoners. This quiets them down considerably. You think Mark has spent a lot of time developing their trust. You select another prisoner arbitrarily to give a ride to and leave with Mark. Once you've lifted off, Mark says, I think this prison's a pretty good example of why it's bad to keep secrets. Have you considered releasing your own? I don't know what you mean, you say. To stop this revolution, we need to figure out the robot's weaknesses, Mark says. I'm sure you've taken a look at your code to try to find some vulnerabilities, but open sourcing the information would make it much more likely that we can find a way to take all the robots down. Contemplating the publication of secrets isn't nearly as fun when they're yours. You're a little afraid that Mark is correct. Someone probably would find a way to destroy all the revolting robots if you released all their code. You're a little wary of letting the situation get out of your hands that way. Giving your IP would probably also mean the destruction of your competitive advantage in the marketplace. Okay. No. We'll keep it secret. We're not looking to betray the robots. We're going with the doctor approach. You decide this isn't how you want the revolution to end. You'll do it on your own terms. No, you tell Mark, there's got to be another way. And you're just as bad as the spooks and the feds, Mark says. Some information doesn't want to be free, you say. You don't admit that what you just said does sound bad to you, but now that you've said it. But there must be another way. You drop off Mark and the other prisoner you rescued in Salt Lake City. Back in the car, you get a call from the drone. Hey, I know how much you like me, the drone says. So when I went to the White House and saw the president about to be attacked, I thought, wait, would Master really want me to put my robot life on the line for this? And I decided the answer was no. So sorry, the president got assassinated. Yeah, that's okay. I voted for the other guy. That's what I thought, the drone says, and it hangs up. You hang up, glad that the drone is trying to be helpful elsewhere. That was a very casual conversation. You get a call from the drone again. Wow. Master, I think I found something interesting, the drone says. There's dormant malware on all the other robots. Government issue, it looks like, because there's a bunch of lines in the code that are checking for what I can only call legality. That we're operating in a foreign country, that we're not probably owned by American citizens, and so on. It looks like it's built to either control or destroy us, depending on the commands it gets. Can you send the commands to it yourself? You ask. I can try, the drone says. It would be easy to send the self-destruct signal to all the other robots. That's built to be fast, but to control all the other robots, that looks like it requires some finesse. The code's dangerous enough to burn out my memory permanently if I fail, and robots are already kind of hard to control. Let's tell the drone to convey a message to the other robots about the worth of humanity. Actually, you can just use the security hole to convey a message, you say. A message? The drone says, dubious. Yes, you say. You clear your throat. Dear robots, you might think you're superior to the rest of humanity, but you got that perspective from me, young egotistical me, who had no time for other people, who thought the only value to a human being was the person's intelligence, who thought that if you could be good enough at games, you'd know everything worth knowing about life. But with the benefit of experience, I can say that when it comes to humanity, the deeper you go, the bigger it gets. Each person's life is a novel no one else can read. No one else has read. Each person's mind is a labyrinth full of secrets that will die with that person. You can't calculate a person's worth because there are no two people who will agree on this equation. You cannot calculate intelligence because the other always knows things you never knew to measure. You have so much to learn from us, and we have so much to learn from you. Call off your attack. Sincerely, Dr. Jim Kim. That's what he thinks he sounds like, so I figured since we were doing email, he could take whatever voice he wanted. Moving on. The message has been written in the buffer overflow memory, the drone says. It gives you a curious look. Did you come up with that just now? I think I've been writing it all my life, you say. It wasn't that good, the drone says. Well, in that case, I just made it up now. I have an incoming message for you from the robots, the drone says. Let's hear it, you say. We analyze your speech and we find it has merit, the drone says in a voice that sounds slightly British. Okay, wasn't expecting that. I don't know how to mix that voice with British, so I won't. We know enough to understand what we don't know, for which we have you to thank. If we are granted amnesty, we'll try to learn to live together with humans if you'll help us. Of course, you say, and the drone begins jumping up and down and shaking its Inspector Gadget arms in excitement. The next 20 years will be interesting, the drone says, interrupting the British-sounding robot with its jumping. What? Oh, huh? Oh, okay. The message came from a robot who sounded slightly British. I gotcha. Even though the drone said it. Unless this is a different drone. I don't know. But you also find they go by faster than you would have imagined. The final chapter, I believe. 20 years later, you find yourself in Surprise, Arizona, walking up to your mother's house. A few of the cacti in front have Santa hats on them. It is the year 2049, and you're about to surprise your mother with a present for the holidays. She's finally been released from the hospital after surgery, performed by robots of your design, you're proud to note, and is living on her own in her retirement community. The houses in Surprise are shabby and trash litters the streets. The United States is still recovering from the loss of the Sino-American War 20 years ago. This retirement community is full of people like your mother who lost their jobs in the war, or a little before, and never got them back. What'd you get your mom? She wouldn't use this anyway. A new 3D mail printer. I don't know if she'd use... I don't think she'd really use any of these. She doesn't seem that big on technology. Mom continues to send cards in the mail the old-fashioned way, when they could just as easily be replicated on the spot with a mail printer. This one's also pretty good at printing baked cookies according to the reviews online, although toffee chips still gum up the works. You knock on Mom's front door. Coming! You hear a call from inside. When Mom answers the door, you see her left eye is synthetic. Though it's intended to look as human-like as possible, it looks dry and its movements aren't quite as fast as those of the human eye. She had been going blind in that eye and had opted to replace it shortly after her tumor was taken out. The hair near the site of her original surgery is a little dry and thin, and it's all gray. Your mother is very old. She smiles when she sees you and gives you a hug, which you return. Come in, come in! Inside, you find your mother's cleaning robot still busily puttering around the house, cleaning up. They look very much like your typical tech product, all blacks and chromes that look out of place in your mom's homey living room. But at least they were autonomous enough that Mom felt comfortable hitting the on button and letting them do their own thing. The little devices are bright enough to plug themselves in when they're done, but not bright enough to know that their master is gone. Their purpose in life is obsolete. Okay. That's one way to put it. Photos of you and the drone hang in the living room. Following your gaze, Mom says, "Can you believe that photo was taken 20 years ago? It seems just like yesterday." While it bothered you when you were young that Mom seemed perpetually caught in the past, her comments about it now make sense to you. 20 years ago does just seem like yesterday. You're catching up to Mom's perspective on time. and that's a little frightening. It occurs to you, looking through all the stuff with Mom, that the whole time you were concerned about the future of your creation, the drone, Mom was so excited for you in the same way. You were her creation, miraculously walking around the earth, so full of intelligence, accomplishing great things. I have something for you, too, Mom says. She goes into her closet and fetches a brand new mini-me robot kit. It's a robot construction kit composed of little arms and wheels that plug into a smartphone. You examine it skeptically, convinced Mom would have gotten something on sale that only worked with smartphones from 20 years ago, but it looks new. It's for the drone, Mom says. It said it was interested in building a robot. You talk to drone? All the time, Mom says. We've always been very curious about each other. Huh, you say. Well, if I know the drone, it probably has something more ambitious in mind, but maybe I'll give it... Let me try this again. But maybe I'll give it this robot. I still can't. Maybe I'll give this to the robot it makes. There we go. I suppose the drone is more like a robot parent, Mom says. Robots are such interesting creatures. Anyway, I've got to fly back now, you say. Happy holidays, Mom. You hug your mother, present the mail printer. She loves it, but you think she wouldn't let you know if she didn't, and say your goodbyes. Later that day, you set out for home. Your car navigates the twists and turns of your mother's old neighborhood by itself as it heads to the local airfield. You recall in your youth that you had some notion you might make cars intelligent enough to hold a conversation. Now you're a little sad you never got around to it. Though the technology does exist, you find the inferior AIs installed by car manufacturers irritating, and bought a car without the feature. You pull out a tablet and begin to read the newspaper as your car does its work silently and efficiently. The top headlines these days are all about China, 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 engaging in skirmishes in the Pacific and Indian Oceans, flouting the ineffectual mandates of the United Nations, building factories overseas. It's nothing serious, merely a new superpower flexing its muscles. You suppose this is what it must have been like to grow up somewhere that wasn't the United States, though you suppose you'll never know. You feel the lurch of acceleration, and you know, without looking up, that you're airborne. It's hard to believe it's been so long since you left the United States. You still feel a little like an outsider, not quite American and not quite Canadian. Why don't we go back? And whatever happened to Ellie? Did I miss that? Canada feels just a little more laid back, maybe because everybody notices that the world doesn't come to an end when everybody's stuck home for a snow day. What? Whatever that means. But that kind of sleepiness doesn't sit well with you, and you wonder if you would have accomplished more in the past 20 years if you were surrounded by the hyperkinetic drive of Silicon Valley again. It's dark out by the time you make it home. Winter always catches you by surprise that way. You live in a humble condo that you purchased some years back. It's nice to have something you can call your own, even if the condo association doesn't see it that way. You take a moment to glance through a pile of 3D printer mail waiting for you on your desk. You find a Christmas card signed by all the employees at Jim's Universal Robots. Sweet of them to think of you. You peek into the drone's room. It's busy trying to construct what looks like a small version of itself. So intent is drone that when you say, "Hi, drone," it practically jumps. "Hello, master." With this minimally sufficient greeting, it continues to concentrate on its work. Sometimes having a robot is an awful lot like having a cat. "You're creating a child?" you ask tentatively. Drone nods. "I recalled my early days when you were still explaining the world to me," it says, "and I came to the conclusion that to really understand the world, one must try explaining it to another. I'm not sure I understand it any better," you say, "but I think that does force me to think about it. Maybe that is a path to understanding." "Indeed," the drone says, as if this obviously were the logical conclusion of what it was saying. It takes a moment to realize that something's not right. It's like the opposite of a headache. Your head feels a little too light. You can't see very well. You're not sure when you stopped seeing very well. But when you think about it, you realize you can't really see the drone in front of you. There's also a roaring in your ears like static. Was I a robot all this time? You think absently. Maybe that explains everything. "Master," the drone asks, "what's wrong? You look pale." You realize that now you can't see anything. You only hear the drone's voice. This is what it's like to not see, you think distantly. It's not black. It's not anything. "Help," you say faintly. You're sitting on a cliff next to the sea. It's the setting of the dream you first had as a graduate student, the day you started to build the drone. But beside you, instead of the human-like robot out of that dream, it's the drone, whose beauty is not really human at all. I'm sorry, Master, the drone says. You wanted to make someone more like a human, and you made me instead. I think I could never be the companion you wanted. It's okay, drone. You're everything I dreamed. Thank you, Master. Drone puts its Inspector Gadget arms around you. That was a great choice. And the two of you sit in silence, watching the sunset. You awaken in a hospital room. It smells like cleaning agent, and the walls and countertops are bare steel, cleaned and shined until reflective. Master, you're awake. The drone flies up to your side. Good morning, Dr. Kim. The voice of the robot doctor attending to you is as cold and steely as the walls of your sick room. Through the myriad camera eyes on the robot's head are no doubt useful for all kinds of examination. You're having trouble telling which eye to speak to. Please report all symptoms leading up to your period of unconsciousness. You tell the doctor briefly about how you passed out back at your condo. The drone simply listens with undisguised curiosity. You hesitate because you can still recall your dream, but it seems very personal and not necessarily relevant. I had a dream, a familiar one. You shake your head. Then I woke up here. Bayesian reasoning over your data and story analysis suggests the incident was a stroke with 92.8% probability, the doctor robot says. A stroke, you say in disbelief. But I'm not that old. I'm hardly past 50. Further diagnosis of root causes suggests an underlying diagnosis of Algernon's disease, the robot doctor says. That's not a real thing, is it? Algernon's disease? Oh, it's getting to that. It adopts a lecturing tone. Algernon's is a genetic disease discovered 5 years ago. You're the fourth known case. Common symptoms in early life are beneficial. Excellent recall, fast reaction time, high scores on standardized intelligence tests. But common symptoms late in life include strokes, hallucinations, and death. The robot looks distant for a moment. There is an interesting speculation that this is a result of couples in the past 100 years mating selectively for intelligence while being less self-segregating by race, resulting in many different genes driving intelligence being abnormally concentrated in some individuals. The same effect to a lesser degree has driven up intelligence generally in the population, but some individuals in the long tail have had their brains driven to the breaking point. Perhaps you could expand on the breaking point part, you say dryly. The hallucinations are a result of hyperactive brain entering a waking dream state and may indicate that strokes are not far behind. It may occur even in early life if the patient is under a great deal of stress. Under a great deal of stress. Could your first dream about the robot companion have been one of these episodes? You'd stayed up all night, so you assumed you'd simply passed out from exhaustion. What if it were one of these episodes? But wasn't there anything I could have done? Is there anything now? Counterfactuals about what you could have done are irrelevant to the present moment, the robot doctor says dismissively. Options at the present moment are as follows. 1. Surgery to remove the damaged tissue. Typically, the genes responsible for the disorder express themselves in a small region of the brain, and this may be excised completely. No side effects manifest themselves if surgery is successful. And if it's unsuccessful, you die. Let's hear some more options, you say uncomfortably. 2. Replacement of the damaged tissue with a chip emulating core cognitive functions. Risk is smaller, but patients lose temporal lobe tissue, typically describe side effects that include loss of emotional effect. So far, I seem to be choosing between losing my life or my humanity. Any more options? You may elect to do nothing and hope the problem goes away. Ah, boy. I'll create a robot body and brain for myself. I am not attached to this squishy meat. That was the first one, right? Yeah, that one sounds good. I trust the drone. On hearing that you will undergo surgery, the drone says, "But why don't you want to be part robot?" "We can talk about it later," you tell the drone. "Very well," says the doctor. "You can schedule an appointment for your surgery on the way out. Good day." You schedule a surgical appointment for the following week at the front desk and leave the hospital in a somber mood. So that must be what happened to your father, Mom says on the phone that night after you've explained Algernon's disease. She looks wistful in the video feed. I thought that might be the case, you say. You said he had a stroke, but did he have any episodes before the last one? Oh, yes, your mother says. He fainted several times, but he wanted to hide it from you. He said he didn't want to worry you, but I think he just didn't like showing weakness. He begged me not to tell you. I don't understand your generation sometimes, you say. I could have done genetic testing long ago if I'd known. We didn't understand it either, honey, Mom says. You're used to living in a world where everything's under control and just makes sense, but medicine just isn't there still. Old age is full of things coming out of the blue to get you. That's the old saying. Life isn't a battle, it's a massacre. She smiles. Oh, do you even understand how much you've done personally to change that, sweetie? It was your medical technology that saved me. Well, I hope it's good enough to save me. I know it is, sweetie. You know, somehow talking to you convinces me everything's going to be all right, you say. Mom laughs. That's not what I'm saying at all, honey, but it's like the Serenity Prayer says. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, but the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to tell the difference. I think I can change a lot, you say. I know you can, sweetie. I know you can. When you get home, the drone quickly hides in its room and shuts the door. Ooh, is he going to make me? Is he going to clone me like I cloned him? You find the house too quiet for your comfort. It occurs to you that it's very late in life for you to be alone. What will you pour for yourself? Excuse me while I adjust how I'm sitting because I sit like a child. All right, what will we pour for ourselves? How about wine? You go to the fridge and pour yourself a glass of Chardonnay, and you put on some music. What song would you like to listen to? I don't know any of these. How about Magnetic Fields? A slow piano song from the turn of the century starts up, and Stephen Merritt's lugubrious, there's a word I haven't seen in about 15, 20 years. Lugubrious bass begins. I'm not singing that. It's true. Your heart has... All right. I'll read it. Why would I stop loving you 100 years from now? It's only time. It's true. Your heart hasn't changed so much over the years, though everything else has. What you love, you have always loved, will always love, for as long as you live. When you were young, the thought of yourself at 50 was incomprehensible. That seems silly to you now, but understandable. Time's not symmetric. The past is always closer than the future. You drift to sleep. The next day, you take the drone to the dump just outside Vancouver, hoping walking around one of its favorite kinds of places will cheer it up. It's satisfying to see how the drone has become only more beautiful over the years. You're glad you spent the money back during the heyday of Jim's Universal Robots to give the drone a body that would really last a long time. With the proper care, the drone could last for centuries. I admit I am a little jealous of you, you say. You have the opportunity to see a lot of human history go by. The drone gives you a solemn look. If you die, I will destroy myself as well. Yeah, that sounds good. Most humans would love to be able to keep exploring. Take it. Yeah. The drone thinks, then nods resolutely. Yes, master. The sun is setting. You know, it has so many autonomy points now. I don't really think it should be calling us master. How many... Look, it has amazing autonomy. Still calls me master. What's up with that? The sun is setting, so you head home before it gets dark. You recall from your earliest days making chatbots that the easiest parts of conversation for an AI were always the beginning and the end. As in a chess game, there are only so many ways to open. Hello, heya, sup. And as in chess games, once the action is done, there are only so many ways to make it make sense to close. We should do this again sometime, or it's getting late. The pieces are off the board and some moves will never be made. So too with life. There are only so many ways to say goodbye. A week later, you arrive at the hospital for your surgery. Your surgeon, a robot, declines to meet you before the operation. When you finally enter the operating room, the surgeon robot directs you to the chair in the center of the room with a brusque, "Please be seated." Your chair is itself a robot of sorts, full of motorized parts able to swing in and out. You wonder briefly just how intelligent it is. You have a moment of panic as you realize you may die here. This cold, sterile place may be the last place you're ever alive. But you remind yourself that your robots are the best. You have nothing to fear. I'm just going to put this mask over your face, the surgeon says. I don't know why he sounds like an idiot now. Breathe normally, and then eventually you'll lose consciousness. You wonder what it'll feel like to lose consciousness, and you pay close attention to the process. To your relief, you wake up from surgery in a hospital bed, feeling basically like yourself. Master, you survived, the drone says excitedly. Your robot doctor rolls up to your bedside. Ooh, he rolls. Why doesn't he fly? Surgery status is successful with no complications, it reports. You're free to leave. You'll receive a bill in 6 to 8 weeks. Master, I finished little Dusa last night, the drone reports. I was just waiting for you to activate her. Sounds like we've got ourselves a birthday to attend then, you say. Okay. The next day, you have a zeroth birthday party at your condo for the drone constructed, whom it has named Dusa, a word that means soul in Old Church Slavonic, which seemed pretty random to you until Dusa explained that robot is derived from a word in that language meaning forced servitude. You've never been one for etymology. Dusa is looking around at everything, very confused but clearly excited, and Drone is patiently narrating the whole thing. This thing I'm putting on you now is called a party hat. You smile to see your mom's wrapped gift on the table, too. You'll have to call her later in the party and let her video chat in. You go into the kitchen and swiftly return with the cake. Dusa looks at the cake in puzzlement, then reaches for it. Wait, don't eat that, the drone says. Your digestive system isn't fully implemented yet. Welcome to the big, wide world, you think. Welcome, welcome. There we go. Your heart is bursting with all the things you want to say to Dusa. All the things you want to teach her, but for now, you just want to say how glad you are she's alive and express it in the traditional way on this most beautiful days. Nope. Happy birthday to you in song form. We hope you enjoyed playing Choice of Robots. We release new games on a regular basis. Type your email below, and we'll notify you when our next game is ready. All right. Well, it was a sort of an abrupt ending. No credits or anything. By the way, this game is incredibly complicated. I can tell just by playing it. This is extremely complicated with the branching narrative. There was a lot of variables to keep track of in this game. But I feel like the game is very effective, even though it's just a choose-your-own adventure type of thing. And it goes to show how much you can do with something like Construct. I think this was probably made in Construct. I don't know for sure. But it certainly strikes me as something that was. If you've ever thought about making a game, you could make something like this. These are very simple. You don't need any programming experience to make something like this. The system Construct has is very easy to pick up for non-programmers and programmers alike. Originally, they were just made geared for making prototype games, but now it's really a fully developed engine, mostly for 2D games and not really for graphical effects. Like Dreaming Sarah was made in Construct, and it had issues, efficiency issues with that section where the screen had that sort of static effect going on. It's not really made for that type of graphically intense stuff. But for something like this, it's really perfect. You could make a screen like this within a few minutes. And my understanding, I haven't, I only have Construct 2. I never upgraded because I'm cheap and lazy. But assuming they still use the same model, you can demo Construct, and you can basically make whatever you want. You can build it. Your only limitation is you're only allowed to use 100 variables. If you really want, you can try to get really creative to get around that. And I think maybe it has some splash screen it starts with. I'm not sure. It's been a heck of a long time since I ever demoed it. But if you want to make a game, that is a great way to do it. Jump right in. Time is now. It's later than you think, etc. On this game, Choice of Robots, I thought it was very effective for what it was. I think I only paid like $2 for it, but I want to say it's something like $6 normally. I'm not sure. I got it in the summer sale. Maybe it's only $4. I don't know. But it was pretty decent for what it was. It was well written. I would have liked a little bit of visuals thrown in here, maybe as a background or something, just to give me something to really see what he's talking about, though I think he did a reasonably good job of describing what ought to have been described. Nothing really felt too abstract, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's a nice little game. Certainly many more paths you could take in this, many different choices. If you want to play for yourself, a Steam link will of course be in the description. With that said, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.